Hello friends. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your interaction not only supports the channel's growth, but also helps these stories reach more people. Thank you all for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. The file reached me on October 14, 2019. It was in a white envelope, standard FBI internal correspondence. It only had the code, Agent Sullivan, we need to review this urgently. The contents smelled of cigarettes and dust. Everything in New Mexico smells like that. Desert dust gets into everything. Into the paper, under your fingernails, into your lungs. I'm Samuel Sullivan, 31 years with the Bureau, 24 of them in the field. Most of those in the Southwest, Arizona, Nevada, Texas. But New Mexico is different. In New Mexico, things go wrong and they stay wrong. The desert doesn't forget, doesn't cover up. It preserves things. Bodies, secrets, sounds. The initial report came from Shiprock Field Office. 3 missing persons in 6 weeks, all within a 15-mile radius of the old Navajo reservation, lands near the Colorado border. Not the active reservation, the abandoned section. The part they gave back to the federal government in '74 after the uranium mine collapsed and poisoned the groundwater. Nobody lives there now. Nobody's supposed to anyway. First disappearance, July 18th. Thomas Begay, 63, retired construction worker. Drove his pickup into the old reservation to collect scrap metal from the mining operation. His truck was found 3 days later on County Road 491. Engine still running, driver's door open. No blood, no struggle, no Thomas Begay. His thermos was on the seat, still warm when sheriff's deputies arrived. Coffee hadn't even finished cooling. Second disappearance, August 2nd. Maria Etzity, 41, schoolteacher from Farmington. Last seen at a gas station in Beclebito. Told the attendant she was driving to see the old mission ruins. Her car turned up on a dirt access road, locked, with her purse and phone inside. Battery at 60%. Last call made to her sister at 3:47 p.m. Sister said Maria sounded normal, said she'd be home by dinner. Third disappearance, August 29th. Robert and Jennifer Morgan, tourists from Ohio, both 36, honeymooners. They checked into the Desert Rose Motel in Teak Nos Pos, told the clerk they wanted to see authentic Navajo country before heading to the Grand Canyon. Security camera caught them leaving the motel at 8:15 a.m. in their rental sedan. The car was found that evening parked at a scenic overlook. Doors unlocked, camping gear in the trunk unused. Jennifer's sunglasses were on the dashboard. Robert's wallet was in the cup holder with $200 cash still inside. The Shiprock report noted one additional detail that caught my attention. In all 3 cases, witnesses in the area, mostly locals driving through, reported hearing strange sounds on their car radios in the days following each disappearance. Not music, not voices. Static. But static that seemed to pulse with a rhythm, almost like breathing. And buried in that static, some witnesses swore they heard a single word repeated over and over. The word was say. I pulled the case file from the locked drawer where I kept the ones nobody else wanted to touch. The ones that made experienced agents find reasons to be busy elsewhere. I'd worked 7 cases in New Mexico over the years. 6 of them closed without resolution. The 7th I didn't like to think about. My partner was supposed to be Janet Reeves, but she was on medical leave recovering from a car accident. So, the Bureau paired me with Marcus Webb from the Albuquerque office. Webb was 42, former Marine, transferred to FBI after 12 years in military intelligence. Good agent, by the book, didn't ask questions that didn't need answers. We'd worked together once before on a cartel case near the border. He was solid. We met at the Farmington Regional Airport on October 16th. Webb drove down from Albuquerque in a Bureau sedan, arrived 30 minutes before my flight landed from Phoenix. When I came through the small terminal, he was waiting by the rental car counter, drinking coffee from a styrofoam cup. "Sullivan," he said, shaking my hand. His grip was firm, professional. "Long time." "2 years," I said. "You still running every morning?" 5 miles, 6 days a week. He gestured to the exit. "Cars outside." I read the file on the drive down. 3 missing persons, no bodies, no witnesses, no forensics. And something about radio static? That's right. "You believe that?" Webb asked as we walked to the parking lot. "The static thing?" "I believe witnesses heard something," I said. "Whether it means anything is what we're here to find out." The October sun was already brutal even at 10 in the morning. The kind of heat that makes asphalt shimmer and turns the air into something you can see. Webb drove us north on Highway 491 toward Shiprock and the reservation lands beyond. The landscape was exactly what people imagine when they think of New Mexico. Flat stretches of red dirt broken by mesas and rock formations that looked like ancient ruins. Sparse vegetation, mostly sagebrush and creosote. The sky was impossibly blue, cloudless, vast enough to make you feel like an insect. "Sheriff's Department is expecting us at noon," Webb said, checking his watch. "Deputy named Ray Nez. He responded to all 3 scene calls. Shiprock office said he knows the area better than anyone. Local. Born and raised, Navajo. Been with the department 18 years. We drove in silence for a while. Through the windshield I watched the desert roll past. Empty land. Lonely land. The kind of place where you could scream and nobody would hear you for miles. Where you could disappear and the earth would just swallow you whole, no questions asked. "You ever work reservation cases before?" Webb asked. "A few. And they're different," I said. "Different rules, different logic. The things that make sense everywhere else don't always apply out here." Webb glanced at me, but didn't push it. We passed through Beclabito, barely a town, just a gas station and a trading post and a few scattered homes. A dog watched us from the roadside, panting in the heat. Beyond the town, the road stretched out straight and endless. My phone buzzed. Text from my ex-wife, something about our daughter's college application deadlines. I'd answer later. Right now, I needed to focus. The San Juan County Sheriff's Department in Shiprock was a low brick building with a parking lot full of dusty patrol vehicles. We arrived 5 minutes early. Inside, the air conditioning felt like salvation. A young woman at the front desk directed us to a conference room in the back where Deputy Nez was waiting. Ray Nez was 56, compact build, close-cropped gray hair. He stood when we entered and shook our hands without smiling. His grip was calloused, working man's hands. He had a folder on the table in front of him, thick with papers and photographs. "Agents," he said. "Glad Bureau's taking this seriously. Thought we might get brushed off." 3 missing persons in 6 weeks? Webb said. "That's not getting brushed off." "You'd be surprised what does and doesn't matter to federal agencies," Nez replied. There was no hostility in his voice, just a statement of fact. He gestured to the chairs. "Sit. I'll walk you through everything." We sat. Nez opened the folder and spread out photographs across the table. Crime scene photos, if you could call them that. Pictures of abandoned vehicles, empty roads, vast stretches of nothing. He tapped the first image. "Thomas Begay." Truck found here 3 miles east of the old mining access road. Responding officers noted the vehicle was still in drive when they arrived. No skid marks, no evidence of mechanical failure. Just sitting there in the middle of nowhere with the engine running. You searched the area? I asked. 4-mile radius. Brought in search and rescue, dogs, helicopters. Nothing. No tracks, no clothing, no indication which direction he went. It's like he opened the door, stepped out, and vanished into thin air. What about the thermos? Webb said. Report mentions it was still warm. That's right. Still hot to the touch 3 hours after dispatch received the initial call from a passing motorist. Coffee doesn't stay hot that long in an open vehicle, not in July heat. Something's off with the timeline. Nez moved to the second set of photos. Maria Ed City's sedan parked on a dirt road, surrounded by desert scrub and rock formations. The car looked small and vulnerable against the vast emptiness. Maria's case is similar but different. Her vehicle was locked, which suggests she secured it intentionally before going somewhere. But where? The mission ruins she mentioned to the gas station attendant are in the opposite direction, 8 miles south. Why drive north? Maybe she changed her mind, Webb suggested. Decided to explore somewhere else. Maybe. Nez didn't sound convinced. But her phone shows no GPS searches, no map applications opened after she left the gas station, and the last call to her sister, she specifically mentioned the mission. Said she was 15 minutes away. Her car was found 40 minutes in the wrong direction. I studied the photograph. Something about the vehicle's position bothered me. It was parked neatly, centered between 2 piñon trees like someone had been careful about placement. Not the kind of parking job you make when you're just pulling over to check a map or take a phone call. What's at that location? I asked. Anything significant? Nez pulled out a topographical map and pointed to a circled area. Nothing official. Old uranium prospecting sites, abandoned in the 60s. Few scattered homesteads from before the mine closure, all long vacant. Mostly it's just empty land. Federal property, technically, though nobody enforces the boundaries. And the tourists? Webb said, looking at the third set of photos. Robert and Jennifer Morgan. Those two bother me most. Nez's jaw tightened. Young couple, married 3 days before they came out here. Everything they owned was in that rental car. Luggage, camera equipment, Jennifer's jewelry. None of it was touched. We're supposed to believe they just abandoned all their possessions and walked off into the desert. No way. The scenic overlook where their car was found showed a panoramic view of the valley below. Red rock formations stretching to the horizon. Beautiful in a desolate way. The kind of view that makes you feel very small. What about the radio static? I asked. Report says multiple witnesses heard unusual sounds. Nez sat back, arms crossed. His expression shifted, became guarded. Yeah, the static. That's where it gets weird. Weird how? First instance was 2 days after Thomas disappeared. Motorist driving Highway 491 at night, around 2 a.m., radio starts going crazy. All stations, same thing. Static with this pulse to it. Like a heartbeat, he said. And underneath, a voice. Just one word, over and over. Stay, I said. Nez looked at me sharply. You read that part? It was in the file. Did the file mention it happened 3 more times? Different witnesses, different locations, all within 5 miles of where the 3 vehicles were found. Last report came in 6 days ago. Highway patrol officer, veteran with 20 years on the force. He called it in at 11:47 p.m. Said the static was so loud it hurt his ears, and the voice was clear as day. Male voice, he thought. Angry, desperate. Webb and I exchanged glances. This was the kind of detail that made cases complicated. Witnesses hearing voices could mean anything from genuine anomaly to mass hysteria to contaminated evidence chain. "Did you record any of it?" Webb asked. "Tried. Officer had a dash cam with audio. Reviewed the footage. Nothing. His radio picked up the static, but the recording showed normal FM interference. Whatever it was, it didn't transfer to digital." "Or he imagined it," Webb said. "4 separate witnesses," Nez countered. 4 different nights. None of them know each other. No connection between them. They all described the exact same thing. Pulsing static, male voice, one word, stay. I thought about this. In 31 years with the FBI, I'd learned that coincidences were rare. 4 independent witnesses reporting identical anomalies meant something real was happening, even if the explanation wasn't immediately clear. The question was whether it connected to the disappearances or was a separate phenomenon that happened to occur in the same area. "I'd like to drive out there," I said. "See the locations firsthand." "Figured you would." Nez stood, collecting the photographs. "I cleared my afternoon. We can hit all 3 sites before dark. Fair warning, though. It's rough country. No cell service, no facilities, and once the sun goes down, it gets cold fast. You're not dressed for it." Webb looked at his suit and tie. "We'll manage." "Your funeral," Nez said, but there was the ghost of a smile. "Let's take my truck. That Bureau sedan won't last 10 minutes on the access roads." We transferred our gear to Nez's pickup, a battered Ford F-250 that looked like it had survived several wars. The bed was filled with emergency supplies. Water jugs, blankets, flares, first aid kit, spare tire, tow chain, and a rifle case locked behind the rear window. "You expecting trouble?" Webb asked, eyeing the rifle. "Out here?" Nez started the engine. "Always expect trouble. Desert doesn't give second chances." We drove north out of Shiprock, following the same route Thomas Begay had taken. The highway gave way to county roads, then to dirt tracks barely wide enough for the pickup. The landscape became more desolate with each mile. Fewer plants, more rocks, everything painted in shades of red and brown. Heat waves made the horizon shimmer like water. After 40 minutes, Nez slowed and pointed to a spot on the shoulder. "Thomas's truck was there. See those tire impressions? Still visible after 3 months. Ground's hard, doesn't show much, but you can make out where he stopped." We got out. The silence hit me first. Complete absence of sound except for the faint whistle of wind across rock. No birds, no insects, no distant traffic. Just emptiness and heat and the smell of sun-baked earth. I walked to where Thomas's truck had been found. The ground showed compressed marks from vehicle weight but little else. No footprints, no disturbed soil indicating a struggle. Just a spot where a man had parked and then ceased to exist. Webb crouched near the tire marks, examining them with the eye of someone trained to spot details. "Tires are pressed deep here. He didn't drift to a stop. He braked deliberately. Parked on purpose." "Why?" I asked. "That's the question." I turned in a slow circle, studying the surrounding terrain. Flat desert stretching in 3 directions, broken only by distant mesas. To the north, perhaps 2 miles away, I could see the skeletal remains of the old mining operation. Rusted structures, collapsed buildings, chain-link fence sagging into the dirt. "The mine," I said. "Thomas was collecting scrap metal. Was he heading there?" Nez shook his head. "Wrong direction. Mine's north. His truck was pointed south when we found it. Like he was leaving, not arriving." That bothered me. A man drives out to collect scrap metal, presumably reaches his destination, then turns around and parks in the middle of nowhere on the way back. Leaves the engine running. Walks away from a thermos of hot coffee. Disappears without trace. "What's his background?" I asked. "Thomas Begay? Family, financial situation, any reason he might want to disappear voluntarily?" "Married 38 years, 3 adult children, 6 grandkids. Retired with a pension, no debt, no known enemies. By all accounts, solid guy. Went to church every Sunday, volunteered at the youth center. No indication of personal crisis. Medical conditions. Clean bill of health 6 weeks before he disappeared. Physical for a life insurance policy increase. His wife wanted better coverage." Nez paused. "She's still hoping he'll come home." We spent another 20 minutes searching the immediate area, finding nothing. Then we returned to the truck and drove to the second location, where Maria Etcitty's car had been found. This site was different. The dirt road was narrower, more isolated, cutting between rock formations that rose like walls on either side. Natural corridor carved by ancient water flow. Maria's sedan had been positioned between 2 trees exactly as I'd noticed in the photograph. Centered, deliberate, careful. "She was a good driver," Nez said. "Her principal at the school mentioned it. Very precise, always parked perfectly. This is consistent with her personality." I approached the trees. They were piñon pines, stunted and twisted by wind and drought. Between them, the ground showed faint tire tracks and nothing more. I looked through the gap where Maria's car had sat, following the sightline. It pointed toward an opening in the rock formations, a natural passage heading northwest. "Where does that lead?" I asked, pointing. Nez consulted a map from his glove compartment. "Old prospecting area. Bunch of test mines, none of them went anywhere. All sealed off in the 70s for safety. Nothing there now except holes in the ground and rattlesnakes." Webb walked the perimeter, examining the ground with his flashlight despite the bright sun. "No footprints leading away from the vehicle, same as Thomas's scene. It's like they parked and then floated away. Or were carried," I said. "By what? There's no evidence of a second vehicle, no aircraft in the area, nothing. The ground here is soft enough to show prints, but there aren't any. Not even Maria's. She had to have stepped out of the car, but there's no trace of her anywhere." He was right, and it troubled me deeply. Disappearing from an isolated location was one thing. The desert was vast, full of places to hide a body. But leaving no trace at all, not even the first few steps away from a vehicle, that required explanation I didn't have. I tried to think like Maria. She was 41, intelligent, schoolteacher. She'd told her sister she was going to the mission ruins but drove in the opposite direction. Why? Did she change her mind? Receive a call? See something that caught her attention? Her phone records showed no incoming calls after she left the gas station. Her last text was to a friend at 3:12 p.m., a photograph of the desert with the caption, "Beautiful out here." The photo's metadata showed it was taken from Highway 491, miles south of where her car was eventually found. So, between 3:12 and whenever she disappeared, Maria had reversed course and driven deep into restricted land. Did she know this area? I asked Nez. Any prior connection to these old mining sites? Not that we found. She grew up in Farmington, taught at the elementary school for 15 years. Her family doesn't recall her ever mentioning the abandoned sections of the reservation. As far as we know, she had no reason to come here. Then why did she? No one had an answer. We stood in the heat, surrounded by ancient rock and empty sky, and I felt the weight of the case settling on me. 3 people, 3 vehicles, 3 locations within a tight radius. All disappeared without explanation. All connected by the absence of evidence, which was itself a kind of evidence. The 3rd location, where Robert and Jennifer Morgan's rental sedan had been found, was another 40 minutes north. The scenic overlook was exactly that, a cleared area at the edge of a mesa, offering views across the valley. Someone had placed a steel guardrail at the cliff edge and a small informational sign about the geology of the region. The sign was weathered, letters faded, clearly hadn't been maintained in years. Their car had been parked facing the view. Webb noted that the parking brake was engaged, gear in park, keys in the ignition. Inside, everything was undisturbed. Jennifer's purse contained wallet, phone, makeup, medications for seasonal allergies. Robert's wallet had cash and credit cards. Their camera bag held 2 expensive DSLRs and multiple lenses. Combined value of items left in the vehicle is around $8,000, Nez said. If this was robbery, worst criminals in history. I walked to the guardrail and looked down. The drop was steep but not sheer, maybe 60 feet to a sloping section of rock and loose scree. Survivable if you were careful, deadly if you weren't. Search team check below? I asked. First thing we did, rappelled down, covered the entire cliff face and base. No bodies, no clothing, no equipment. They didn't fall, and they didn't climb down. Webb was examining the vehicle's interior with latex gloves, checking under seats and in the trunk. 2 bottles of water in the cup holders, both half empty, indicates they were here for a while, long enough to get thirsty. Security footage from the motel shows them loading the car at 8:10 a.m., Nez said. Vehicle was found at 6:35 p.m. same day, 10 hours. Could have been here the whole time, or they could have driven elsewhere first. I thought about the honeymooners from Ohio. 3 days married, their whole lives ahead of them. They chose to spend part of their honeymoon exploring New Mexico backcountry, seeking authentic experience away from tourist traps. And they found something. Or something found them. The pattern, I said, thinking aloud. All 3 cases, the vehicles are left intact. No signs of struggle, no damage, no theft. The people just stop existing. Could be a serial killer, Webb suggested. Someone local who knows the area maybe lures victims to isolated locations. How? Nez challenged. Thomas Begay drove here alone. Maria at City drove here alone. The Morgans drove here together. No indication any of them met anyone else. No tire tracks from second vehicles. How does a killer intercept 3 separate targets in 3 separate incidents without leaving any physical evidence? Could be someone they trusted, Webb said. Someone who approached them without triggering alarm. Like who? Cop, ranger, someone in uniform. Nez's expression hardened. Checked alibis for every law enforcement officer in 3 counties. All clear. I walked away from them, following the tree line that bordered the overlook. Something was nagging at me, detail I couldn't quite catch. The sun was starting to descend, shadows lengthening across the red rocks. Temperature would drop fast once darkness came. That's when I heard it. Faint at first, barely audible over the wind. A crackling sound, like static from an old radio. I froze, listening. It was coming from somewhere nearby, but I couldn't pinpoint the direction. You hear that? I called to Webb and Nez. They stopped talking and listened. The static grew slightly louder, pulsing with a rhythm that was almost but not quite regular. And underneath it, something else. A sound that might have been a voice, or might have been wind through rocks, or might have been nothing at all. I don't hear anything, Webb said after a moment. But Nez's face had changed. I do. The static. Same thing the witnesses reported. The sound was clearer now, definitely pulsing, definitely carrying something beneath the surface noise. I concentrated, trying to isolate the voice if there was one. The static rose and fell like breathing, and in the valleys between the peaks, I thought I could make out, "Stay." The word was so faint I wasn't certain I'd heard it, but Nez nodded. Yeah, that's it, that's what they heard. Webb looked between us, confused. "I'm not hearing anything. Are you sure this isn't psychological? Power of suggestion?" "Listen closer," I said. "It's there." He stood still, face concentrated, but after a full minute he shook his head. "Nothing. Just wind." That was strange. 3 of us standing in the same location, 2 hearing an anomalous sound, and 1 hearing nothing. Why would Webb be excluded? What was different about him? The static was fading now, becoming more intermittent. I tried to move toward it, see if I could find the source, but the sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Definitely not from any vehicle or electrical source. We were miles from power lines, and none of us had functioning radios. Then it stopped completely. The silence that followed felt deeper than before, heavier somehow. The wind had died down, and in the stillness I became aware of how isolated we were. No signs of civilization in any direction, just endless desert and darkening sky. "This is what the witnesses described," Nez said quietly. "Exactly this. Static for a few minutes, 1 word, then nothing." "I didn't hear any voice," Webb insisted. "Just you 2 saying you heard something." "You think we're making it up?" "I think human brains are excellent at pattern recognition, even when there's no pattern. You expected to hear something, you're primed by witness reports, and your mind fills in the gaps." He wasn't wrong about how perception works. But I knew what I'd heard. The static was real, and the voice beneath it was real, even if I couldn't explain how or why. "We should head back," Nez said, checking his watch. "Sun's going down soon, and I don't want to be out here after dark." "Why not?" I asked. He was quiet for a moment, choosing words carefully. "Bad things happen out here at night. Always have. My grandfather used to say this land was angry about the mining, about having its bones torn open and poisoned. Said it doesn't forgive. You believe that?" "I believe 3 people disappeared from this exact area in 6 weeks, Nez said. "And I believe we don't know why. That's enough to make me cautious." We returned to the truck and started the long drive back to Shiprock. The sun touched the horizon, painting the desert in shades of orange and red that looked like fire. Shadows stretched long across the ground, and in the distance I could see lights beginning to appear. Homes, businesses, signs of human habitation fighting back against the wilderness. My phone regained signal as we neared town. 3 missed calls from the Phoenix office, 2 emails marked urgent. I'd deal with them later. Right now, my mind was processing what we'd seen today. 3 crime scenes that weren't crime scenes. 3 vehicles abandoned with no explanation. 3 people gone without trace. And a sound that 2 of us heard and 1 didn't, carrying a single word that might have been warning or threat or something else entirely. The word stay could mean many things. Stay away, stay here, stay alive, stay where you are. Without context, it was just a fragment, meaningless on its own. But combined with the disappearances, it felt significant. We reached the sheriff's department as full darkness fell. The parking lot was nearly empty, just a few patrol cars and Nez's truck. We transferred our gear back to the Bureau sedan, while Nez wrote up notes from the day's investigation. "Where are you staying?" he asked. "Red Mesa Inn, off Highway 64, Webb said. It was the only place with vacancies. Nez made a face. "Yeah, well, it's cheap for a reason. Don't drink the tap water, and check for scorpions before you put on your shoes." "Looking forward to it already," Webb said dryly. We shook hands with Nez and got his cell number for the morning. He promised to pull together more witness statements and radio reports for us to review. As we drove toward the motel, Webb was quiet, thoughtful. "What do you think?" I asked him. "Honestly, I think we're missing something obvious. 3 disappearances in pattern like this, there's got to be a connection we're not seeing." "What about the static?" "I think it's atmospheric interference or equipment malfunction that witnesses are misinterpreting. I think you and Nez heard something, but it wasn't what you thought it was." "Maybe." We pulled into the Red Mesa Inn, a depressing collection of single-story units arranged around a parking lot. The neon sign missing several letters spelled RDMAN. Our rooms were next to each other. Basic accommodations with thin walls and thinner towels. I dropped my bag on the bed and checked my messages. Nothing that couldn't wait until morning. I was exhausted from travel and heat and the weight of unanswered questions. But I knew I wouldn't sleep well. Never did on cases like this. Around 9 p.m., I gave up trying to rest and walked to the small lobby where a vending machine hummed in the corner. The night clerk, an elderly Navajo woman, was watching a game show on a portable TV. She looked up when I entered. "Coffee's fresh," she said, pointing to a pot near the TV. "Made it an hour ago. Thanks." I poured a cup, black, and leaned against the counter. "Been working here long?" 15 years come December. You hear about the missing people? The ones from the old reservation land?" Her expression shuddered. I heard. "You know anything about that area? Why someone might go out there?" "I know enough to stay away from it," she said flatly. "And I know you should too." "Why's that?" She turned back to her TV. "Because some places don't want visitors, and that's one of them." I waited to see if she'd elaborate, but she didn't. The game show played on, canned laughter echoing in the empty lobby. After a few minutes, I thanked her for the coffee and went back to my room. Webb was in his room, light visible under the door, probably reviewing case files. I sat on the bed and opened my laptop, pulling up everything we had on the 3 victims, looking for connections, patterns, anything that might explain why these specific people in this specific place. Thomas Begay, Navajo, lifelong New Mexico resident, retired, family man, no criminal record, no unusual financial activity, no obvious enemies. Maria Etzidi, Navajo, Farmington born, schoolteacher, divorced 8 years prior, 2 adult sons. Clean background, active in church, volunteered for literacy programs. Robert and Jennifer Morgan, white, from Cleveland suburbs, middle-class professionals. Robert worked in IT, Jennifer was a graphic designer. No connection to New Mexico or Navajo culture beyond typical tourist interest. On the surface, nothing linked them. Different ages, different backgrounds, different reasons for being in the area. But they'd all disappeared from the same tight radius of desert, all in the same unexplained manner. That had to mean something. I closed the laptop and lay back, staring at the water-stained ceiling. Tomorrow, we'd interview witnesses, review radio reports, maybe drive out to the old mine if we could get permission. Standard investigative work, building a picture detail by detail. But I kept thinking about the static, the voice underneath, that single word, stay. Around midnight, I finally drifted off, and when I did, I dreamed of empty desert and distant sounds I couldn't quite identify. In the dream, I was standing at the scenic overlook where the Morgans disappeared, and the sun was setting, and somewhere far below in the gathering darkness something was calling out. Not in words I could understand. Just a sound that made me want to run. I woke at 3 a.m., heart pounding, sheets soaked with sweat. The room was dark except for the red glow of the alarm clock. Outside, I could hear wind moving through the parking lot, rattling loose metal somewhere nearby. And underneath the wind, so faint I might have imagined it, the sound of static. Morning came with pale sun through thin curtains. I'd managed another hour of broken sleep after waking at 3, enough to function, but not enough to feel rested. Webb knocked on my door at 7, looking alert and professional despite the substandard accommodation. "Sleep well?" he asked. "Well enough," I lied. "You?" "Like a rock. This desert air knocks me out." He held up 2 paper cups. "Got us coffee from that gas station across the highway. The stuff in the lobby looked like it was made during the Reagan administration." We drove back to the sheriff's department in the clear morning light. The temperature was already climbing toward uncomfortable. Nez was waiting with a file folder and a tired expression that suggested he hadn't slept much either. "Got something interesting," he said, spreading papers across the conference table. "Pulled the full radio logs from Highway Patrol for the past 3 months. The static incidents? There's a pattern." He pointed to a chart he'd created, plotting dates and times of reported anomalies. 4 incidents total, each occurring between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., each lasting approximately 5 to 8 minutes. The locations formed a rough circle with a radius of about 3 miles, centered on a point in the old reservation land. "What's at the center?" Webb asked. Nez pulled out a topographical map and marked the spot with a red X. Nothing official, but according to historical records, it's the site of the original uranium discovery in 1951. First test mine, before the operation expanded. It was sealed in 1974, along with everything else. "You think something at that mine could be causing radio interference? I think it's worth checking out. Problem is, it's deep in restricted federal land. We'd need permission, and that takes time we may not have." "Why may not have?" I asked. Nez's expression darkened. "Because I got a call this morning at 5 a.m. Another vehicle found abandoned on County Road 7900. White Honda CR-V registered to a David Huerta from Durango. Engine running, driver's door open, no sign of Huerta anywhere." The room went silent. 4 disappearances in 7 weeks. The pattern was accelerating. "When?" Webb asked. "Vehicle was spotted by a rancher at 4:30 a.m. He reported it immediately. I sent deputies out to secure the scene, but I waited for you before going myself." "Let's go," I said, already standing. We took Nez's truck again, driving north into terrain that was becoming familiar. The location was east of where Maria's car had been found, about 4 miles from the original mining site. When we arrived, 2 sheriff's vehicles were parked on the shoulder, their occupants maintaining perimeter around the abandoned Honda. The scene was identical to the others. Vehicle parked neatly on the side of a dirt road, engine running until deputies had shut it off, driver's door standing open. David Huerta's wallet was on the passenger seat. His phone was in the cup holder, battery at 40%. No signs of struggle, no footprints leading away, no indication what direction he might have gone. "Background on Huerta?" Webb asked Nez, while I examined the vehicle. 34, software engineer, lives in Durango. Single, no kids. Drove down here yesterday evening according to his phone's GPS log. Last known position was this road at 11:47 p.m. What was he doing out here that late? Unknown. His social media shows he was into photography and hiking. Last post was a sunset picture taken near Aztec with the caption, "Chasing the Light." That was at 7:20 p.m. I opened the Honda's trunk. Photography equipment, camping gear, hiking boots, water bottles. Everything you'd bring for an overnight wilderness trip. But no note, no explanation, no clue why David Huerta had parked on this particular stretch of empty road and vanished. The sun was fully up now, heat already oppressive. I surveyed the surrounding landscape. Flat desert broken by low hills and scattered vegetation, somewhere in the distance, barely visible, I could see the rusted structures of the old mine complex. "The mine," I said. "All 4 disappearances are within a tight radius of that site. That can't be coincidence." "Agreed," Nez said. "Question is, what's the connection? The mine's been sealed for 45 years. Nothing there but collapsed tunnels and contaminated groundwater. Then why do people keep disappearing near it?" Nobody had an answer. We spent 2 hours processing the scene, taking photographs, collecting what little evidence existed. The forensics team from Farmington arrived and went over everything with their equipment, but I knew they'd find nothing. 4 scenes, 4 vehicles, 4 missing people, and not a single useful piece of physical evidence. Whatever was happening here, it wasn't leaving traces. As we were preparing to leave, one of the deputies called out, "Got something!" We walked over to where he stood at the edge of the road, pointing to a patch of ground about 15 feet from the Honda. In the dust, barely visible, were marks that might have been footprints, not clear enough to get useful impressions, but definitely disturbed soil. "Heading that direction," the deputy said, indicating northwest, "toward the mine." "Could be Huerta's," Webb said. "Could be anyone's, could be from weeks ago." But the deputy shook his head. "Ground's loose here. Wind would have filled these in after a day or 2. These are recent." We followed the faint trail as far as we could. It led away from the road, across open desert, maintaining a remarkably straight line toward the mine complex. After about 200 yards, the tracks disappeared entirely, erased by harder ground that showed nothing. "He walked toward the mine," I said. "Why? What's out there?" "Danger," Nez replied flatly. "Contamination, unstable tunnels, rattlesnakes, no water, no shelter. Walking toward that mine at midnight is suicide. Unless he had a reason. What reason could possibly justify that?" I didn't know, but 4 people had made similar choices, abandoning their vehicles in isolated locations and disappearing toward the same general area. Either they were being compelled somehow, or they were seeking something, and I needed to find out which. Back at the sheriff's department, Nez started working on permission to access the mine site, while Webb and I interviewed witnesses who'd reported hearing the static. First was a truck driver named Bill Morrison who'd been driving Highway 491 at 2 a.m. 6 days after Thomas Begay disappeared. Morrison was in his 60s, weathered face, calloused hands. He'd been driving trucks for 40 years and had the air of someone who'd seen everything. But talking about the static made him uncomfortable. "I've driven that highway 10,000 times, he said. "Never heard anything like it. Radio just went crazy, all stations, just this breathing sound and static. And underneath," he paused. "I know how this sounds, I know. But underneath there was a voice." "What did it say?" I asked. "One word, stay, over and over. And the way it sounded, it wasn't asking, it was commanding, like an order you don't refuse. Male voice, female? Male, I think, deep, but weird, like it was coming from very far away, or underwater, I don't know. I turned the radio off and it was still there for another minute. Then it just stopped." "Did you feel compelled to do anything, pull over, drive to a specific location?" Morrison thought about this. "Not compelled exactly, but I had this strong feeling I should stop driving. Should park and walk into the desert. Made no sense, obviously, so I didn't do it. But the feeling was there." We got similar accounts from the other 3 witnesses. Each described the static, the pulsing rhythm, the single word, command. Each reported feeling an urge to stop their vehicle and investigate the source. 2 of them had resisted easily, like Morrison. But the 3rd witness, a woman named Patricia Coleman, had a more disturbing experience. "I almost did it," she said. hands shaking as she held her coffee mug. I almost stopped the car, put it in park, had my hand on the door handle. Something in that voice made me want to obey. Like when you're a kid and your parent calls your name in a certain tone, you just move without thinking. "But you didn't stop," Webb said. "My phone rang, snapped me out of it. By the time I answered, the static was gone and I was sitting there on the highway at 2 in the morning, hand on the door, ready to walk into pitch-black desert. I drove straight home after that, didn't stop for anything." "Who called?" I asked. "My daughter. She said she'd had a nightmare and wanted to hear my voice. Probably saved my life." After the interviews, Webb and I compared notes in a borrowed office. The picture emerging was disturbing. Some kind of auditory phenomenon occurring at night in a tight geographic area, carrying a message that compelled listeners to approach its source. Those who resisted went home safely, those who didn't. "Mass hallucination," Webb said. "Has to be. Environmental factor, maybe. Contamination from the uranium mine affecting people's brains. All 4 disappearance victims and 4 separate witnesses?" I challenged. "All experiencing identical hallucinations? That's statistically implausible." "More plausible than what? Ghosts? Aliens? Some kind of supernatural force commanding people through their car radios? I'm not suggesting any of those things. I'm saying we don't know what we're dealing with yet." "Then what's your theory?" I didn't have one. That was the problem. 31 years with the FBI, I'd built a career on finding logical explanations for seemingly inexplicable events. But this case was pushing me toward conclusions I didn't want to reach. Because the only thing that fit all the evidence was something impossible. Around 2 p.m., Nez came in with the news. "Got permission to access the mine site. Federal office in Albuquerque green-lit it with conditions. We have to take a hazmat team. Can't enter any sealed structures and we need to be out before dark. They're very specific about the before dark part." "Why?" Webb asked. "Because that's when the accidents always happened. During the mining operation, 3 workers died in night shifts. All separate incidents, all officially ruled accidental. But the company had trouble keeping workers after dark. Too many reports of strange sounds, equipment malfunctions, people feeling watched. Eventually, they just shut down night operations entirely." "Did you know this before?" I asked. Nez shook his head. "Dug into the archives this morning while you were interviewing witnesses. The mine's history is darker than I realized. And the reason they sealed it wasn't just uranium contamination." He pulled out a folder thick with copied documents. In May 1974, 2 months before the final closure, a geologist named Richard Harper went down into the main shaft for a final survey. He was supposed to be down there 2 hours. He was down there 6. When they finally pulled him out, he was catatonic. Never spoke another word. Died in a psychiatric facility 3 years later. "Jesus," Webb muttered. "What happened to him?" "Nobody knows. His survey equipment was destroyed. Notes were illegible scribbles. The few words anyone could make out kept repeating the same phrase. It spoke to me." The room felt colder, despite the desert heat outside. I thought about the static, the voice, the single-word command. Something in that mine had been affecting people for decades, and now it was reaching beyond the sealed tunnels, pulling victims from miles away. "We go tomorrow morning," I said. "First light. I want to see that mine." That evening, Webb and I had dinner at a small restaurant in Shiprock. The food was good, Navajo tacos and fried bread, but neither of us had much appetite. We were both thinking about what we'd heard today, trying to fit pieces into a pattern that made sense. "You think something's actually calling to people?" Webb asked, keeping his voice low. "From that mine?" "I think something's happening we don't understand yet. whether it's environmental, psychological, or... I trailed off. Or what? Or something else. Webb set down his fork. Sullivan, you've been at this a long time. You've seen strange cases. In your experience, how often do you run into genuinely unexplainable phenomena? I thought about this carefully. Genuinely unexplainable? Never. Everything has an explanation eventually. But sometimes the explanation is outside the framework we're used to working in. That's not an answer. No, I agreed. It's not. We finished eating in silence and headed back to the motel. The sun was setting, painting the desert in those deep reds and oranges that made everything look like it was on fire, beautiful and unsettling at the same time. In my room, I tried to file reports but found myself staring at the screen without typing. My mind kept circling back to that word. Stay. What did it mean? Stay away? Stay here? Was it a warning or a command or something else entirely? Around 10 p.m. my phone buzzed. Text from Nez. Turn on your radio, any station. I found a small clock radio on the nightstand and switched it on. Static filled the room immediately. Not normal interference, but that pulsing, breathing sound the witnesses had described. My heart rate picked up as I listened, waiting for the voice. It came after about 30 seconds. Distant, distorted, but unmistakable. Stay! The word repeated 3 times, each iteration slightly clearer than the last. Then the static faded and normal radio programming returned, some talk show discussing local politics. I called Nez immediately. You heard it? Yeah. Happened about 5 minutes ago, lasted maybe 2 minutes total. I've got calls coming in from all over the county. Dozens of people heard it this time, not just a few isolated witnesses. It's getting stronger, I said. Or closer, or more frequent. Whatever's happening, it's escalating. After hanging up, I stood at the window looking out at the dark desert beyond the motel lights. Somewhere out there, 4 people were missing. Somewhere out there, something was reaching out through radio waves, calling to anyone who'd listen. And tomorrow, we were going to find out what. I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Webb. I heard him moving around in the next room, restless. At 4 a.m., I gave up, showered, and started preparing gear for the mine visit. Flashlights, water, first aid kit, radio equipment, GPS tracker. Everything by the book, standard field operation. But this didn't feel standard. Nez picked us up at 6 a.m., along with a 3-person hazmat team from the Federal Contamination Office. They had protective gear, radiation detectors, air quality monitors, all the equipment needed to safely investigate a sealed uranium mine. The team leader, a woman named Dr. Sarah Reeves, briefed us on the drive out. The main shaft goes down about 400 feet, she said. We're not entering it. Too unstable, too contaminated. But we can survey the entrance and surrounding areas. The radiation levels should be minimal at the surface, but we'll monitor continuously. The mine complex was more extensive than I'd realized from distance. Multiple buildings in various states of collapse. Rusted equipment scattered across acres of disturbed earth. Chain link fencing sagging into the dirt. The main shaft entrance was a concrete structure built into the side of a low mesa, reinforced steel door sealed with multiple padlocks and warning signs. Jesus, Webb muttered. This place looks like something from a nightmare. He wasn't wrong. There was something oppressive about the location, a weight to the air that had nothing to do with temperature or humidity. The hazmat team seemed to feel it too. They kept glancing around nervously as they set up their equipment. Dr. Reeves' radiation detector clicked steadily, but not alarmingly. Background levels are elevated but safe, consistent with contaminated groundwater and residual particulates. Nothing immediately dangerous. Nez and I approached the main shaft entrance. The steel door was covered in rust but still solid, locks firmly in place. Through gaps around the frame, cool air flowed out, carrying a smell I couldn't quite identify. Mineral, metallic, but with something else underneath. Something organic and unpleasant. "You feel that?" Nez asked quietly. "The air?" "The feeling, like we're being watched." I did feel it, had felt it since we arrived. A prickling sensation at the back of my neck, an irrational certainty that something was aware of our presence. I didn't mention it because it sounded crazy. Webb was examining the surrounding area, documenting everything with his camera. "Look at this," he called out, pointing to the ground near the fence line. We walked over. In the dirt were footprints, multiple sets relatively fresh. They led from the road toward the mine entrance, then disappeared at the fence. "Someone's been here recently," Webb said. "Multiple someones." "David Huerta," I suggested. "Maybe, or the others. Or all of them." He photographed the prints carefully. "These go right up to the fence and then nothing. Like they climbed over or..." He stopped. "Or what?" "Or disappeared, again." The hazmat team finished their initial survey and gave us clearance to investigate the surface buildings. We spent an hour searching through collapsed structures and rusted equipment, finding nothing useful. Everything was exactly as you'd expect from an abandoned industrial site. Old machinery, scattered tools, piles of rubble. But in the foreman's office, a metal trailer that had somehow survived 4 decades of weather, we found something interesting. A logbook from the final weeks of operation, water-damaged and barely legible. Most entries were mundane notes about ore production and equipment maintenance, but the final entry, dated May 17, 1974, was different. It was written in shaky handwriting, letters formed by someone under severe stress. "Third incident this week. Jennings swears he heard something calling from deep down. Says it knows his name. I'm shutting down night shifts permanently. Whatever's in the deep sections can stay there." The entry was unsigned. "Jennings," Nez said. "That's Richard Harper's supervisor. Guy who pulled him out of the shaft when he went catatonic." I photographed the logbook page. "What happened to Jennings?" "Don't know. I'll check death records when we get back." Dr. Reeves approached with her equipment. "We're reading some unusual energy signatures near the main shaft. Not radiation, something else. Our electromagnetic detector is showing fluctuations that don't match any known geological phenomena." "What kind of fluctuations?" I asked. "Regular pulses, almost like..." She paused, checking her display. "Like breathing. Rise and fall in a rhythmic pattern. It's very faint, but definitely there." The same pattern the radio static followed. Whatever was in that mine, it was generating some kind of electromagnetic field that could be picked up by car radios and scientific equipment alike. "Can you trace it to a source?" Webb asked. "It's coming from deep underground, below the sealed sections, probably from the original exploration tunnels. We'd need to breach the door to pinpoint it, and that's not happening without proper excavation permits and safety measures." We were standing there discussing options when the feeling of being watched intensified dramatically. All of us felt it simultaneously. Nez, Webb, Dr. Reeves, everyone. The hair on my arms stood up, and a chill ran down my spine despite the desert heat. "Something's wrong," one of the hazmat team members said, voice shaking. Then we heard it. Not through radios this time. Directly through the air, emanating from the sealed mine shaft. A sound that was part static, part wind, part something else entirely. And underneath, clear as day, that single word, "stay." It wasn't a whisper anymore. It was loud, commanding, impossible to ignore. The electromagnetic detector in Dr. Reeves' hand went crazy. readings spiking off the scale. And every single person present felt the same overwhelming compulsion I'd heard described by witnesses. Stop, park, walk into the desert, go to the mine. Get in the vehicles, I shouted, fighting against the urge. Now! We ran for the trucks, piling in chaotically. Nez started the engine with shaking hands and we sped away from the mine complex, dust cloud rising behind us. Nobody spoke for the first 5 minutes. We were all processing what we'd just experienced, a genuine, undeniable manifestation of whatever was causing the disappearances. "What the fuck was that?" one of the hazmat team members finally said. "That," Dr. Reeves replied, still checking her detector, "was an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to affect human neural activity. Some kind of infrasound component, too, frequencies that bypass conscious hearing and trigger deep brain responses. I've never seen anything like it." "Could it occur naturally?" Webb asked. "Geological process, underground gas, something?" "Not with that level of complexity and organization. Natural phenomena don't form words. They don't pulse with intentional rhythm. Whatever's generating that signal is either technological or—" She trailed off. "Or what?" Nez demanded. "Or I don't know. I don't have a category for it." We drove back to Shiprock in stunned silence. Everyone was shaken, professional composure cracked by direct contact with something that shouldn't exist. When we reached the sheriff's department, Dr. Reeves immediately started calling her superiors, trying to explain what she'd measured without sounding crazy. Webb pulled me aside. "We need to call this in. Get specialists out here, seismologists, physicists, whoever studies this kind of thing. This is beyond local law enforcement and regular FBI. Agreed. But we need to move fast. Whatever's in that mine, it's getting more active, more aggressive. If we don't figure out what's happening soon..." I didn't finish the thought. "More people will disappear," Webb finished for me. Nez was on the phone with multiple agencies coordinating response. Federal jurisdiction would take over soon. The site was federal land, the mine was federal responsibility, and the scope of the phenomenon was clearly beyond local resources. But until that happened, we were the boots on the ground. I spent the afternoon filing reports and making calls to Phoenix office. My supervisor listened to my briefing with increasing skepticism. "Sullivan, you're telling me there's some kind of electromagnetic anomaly in an old uranium mine that makes people hear voices and compels them to walk into the desert?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you. We have witness testimony, scientific readings, and direct experience from 7 trained professionals." Christ. This is going to be a nightmare to document. You realize how this sounds. I realize it sounds impossible, but it's happening whether it sounds plausible or not. What do you need? Specialists, geologists, physicists, maybe paranormal researchers if we're being honest about what we're dealing with. And we need to close off that area completely. No civilian access anywhere near the old mine. I'll make calls. Expect federal involvement by tomorrow. In the meantime, don't go back out there alone. Wasn't planning on it. Evening came with spectacular sunset. The kind of natural beauty that seemed wrong given what we'd experienced. Webb and I met Nez for dinner at the same restaurant as before. We were all exhausted, running on adrenaline and bad coffee. "Jennings died in 1982, Nez said, checking notes on his phone. "Heart attack, officially. But his wife told the funeral director he'd never been the same after they closed the mine. Said he had nightmares every night for 8 years. Would wake up screaming that something was calling to him." "Jesus," Webb muttered. 8 years of torture before it finally killed him. Richard Harper, the catatonic geologist, had similar symptoms before he stopped speaking. Medical records show he was agitated, paranoid, kept trying to leave the facility. Doctors said he was trying to return to something, though he could never articulate what. I thought about the 4 missing people. Were they experiencing the same compulsion? Had they walked into the desert unable to resist the call, or had something more direct happened? The word stay, I said. We've been assuming it's a command to stay away. But what if it's the opposite? What if it's telling people to stay there at the mine, to remain? You think the missing people are still there? Webb asked. At that complex? I think we need to search it more thoroughly. Tomorrow, full daylight, maximum personnel. If they're anywhere near that site, we need to find them before... Again, I didn't finish. Before what? Before they died? Before something worse happened? I didn't know what the end state was, and that scared me more than any concrete threat. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. They're waiting for you. I showed it to Webb and Nez. Both looked disturbed. Trace it, Webb said. I called it into the Phoenix office tech team. 15 minutes later, they called back. Number's a dead end. Unregistered burner phone, GPS disabled, last ping from a cell tower near Shiprock 3 hours ago. Someone's watching us, Nez said. Someone knows we went to the mine today. Or something knows, I replied quietly. That night, the static returned. Stronger than before, lasting nearly 20 minutes. Every radio in a 50-mile radius picked it up. The voice beneath the noise was clearer now, almost conversational in tone. But still, just that single word, stay. And listening to it, lying in the dark in that cheap motel room, I felt the compulsion again. The urge to get up, walk outside, drive back to that mine, to go deep into the restricted desert and find the source of the call. I didn't move. I stayed in bed, fighting the urge with every bit of willpower I had. But I understood now how the others had failed to resist. Because the voice wasn't just sound, it was something deeper, more primal. It reached into parts of your brain that predated language and logic, triggering responses you couldn't control through simple willpower. Around 3 a.m., my phone rang. Nez. Another one, he said, without preamble. Silver Toyota Camry found on Route 7900. Female driver, mid-30s. Vehicle still running. She's gone. 5 disappearances in 7 weeks. The voice was collecting victims. And tomorrow, we were going back to find out why. The sun rose blood red over the desert. I'd been awake for hours, preparing equipment for what I knew would be the most dangerous day of the investigation. Webb knocked on my door at 5:30 a.m., looking as haggard as I felt. You hear about number 5? He asked. Yeah. Nee called me at 3. Her name's Jennifer Blackwood. Tourist from Santa Fe, photographer. Was out here shooting landscape pictures. Her car was found with the camera still on the passenger seat. Memory card full of images from yesterday evening. Any of the mine? Last 20 photos are all of the mine complex. Different angles, different lighting. Like she was documenting it thoroughly. She knew something, I said. Or she was being drawn there, same as the others. We met Nez at the sheriff's department, along with a full search and rescue team. 12 people, including dog handlers and a medical unit. Dr. Reeves and her hazmat specialists were back, this time with additional electromagnetic shielding equipment. Federal agencies had finally mobilized overnight, and by this afternoon the site would be swarming with specialists. But for now, it was just us. Here's the plan, Nez said, spreading maps across the conference table. We search every structure, every tunnel entrance, every foot of ground within a quarter mile of the main shaft. If the missing people are anywhere in that complex, we find them. If they're not, we expand the search radius. What about the voice? One of the search team members asked. What do we do if it starts again? You resist, I said. You recognize it for what it is. A neurological manipulation, not a genuine compulsion. You buddy up, watch each other, and if anyone starts exhibiting signs of being affected, you remove them from the area immediately. Easy to say, the team member muttered. Harder to do. He was right, but we had no choice. 5 people were missing and possibly still alive. We had to try. The convoy of vehicles headed north under clear skies. Temperature was already climbing toward 90 degrees. By afternoon, it would be over 100, and searching in that heat would become dangerous. We had maybe 4 hours before conditions deteriorated. Arriving at the mine complex felt different in morning light. The oppressive atmosphere was still there, but diminished somehow. Less immediate dread, more lingering unease. The buildings looked more pathetic than menacing, just rust and collapse and failure. Dr. Reeves set up a monitoring station at the perimeter, tracking electromagnetic activity constantly. Readings are low right now, she reported. Baseline activity only. Whatever generates the strong pulses, it's dormant or conserving energy. Or waiting, Webb said quietly. The search teams spread out systematically, each unit taking a section of the complex. Webb and I paired with Nez, focusing on the structures closest to the main shaft. We started with the collapsed administration building. Inside was a disaster of fallen ceiling panels and overturned furniture. 45 years of weather damage had reduced everything to rubble. But searching through it, I found something that made my skin crawl, fresh footprints in the dust. Recent enough that the prints were still clear, not yet disturbed by wind or animal traffic. Someone's been here within the last few days, I called out to Webb and Nez. We followed the prints through the building. They led to a back room that had once been a storage area, and there, in the corner, we found evidence of recent habitation. A sleeping bag, empty water bottles, protein bar wrappers. Someone had been camping here, staying close to the mine. David Huerta, Webb suggested, photographing everything. Or one of the others. Nez examined the supplies. These are outdoor brands, high-quality gear. Thomas Begay was known for cheap equipment. This stuff is expensive. So, probably the Morgans or Jennifer Blackwood, I said. They had money for good equipment. But why camp here? Why not just explore and leave? Unless they couldn't leave. Unless something kept them here, trapped by the same compulsion that had drawn them in the first place. We continued searching. 2 buildings over, in what had been the equipment warehouse, we found more signs of recent presence. This time it was clear someone had been trying to break into a locked interior room. The door was reinforced steel, scratched and dented by repeated impacts. Whoever had been trying to get in hadn't succeeded. The door remained sealed. "What's in there?" Webb asked. Nez checked the complex schematics. According to these, it's the explosives storage. They use dynamite for the mining operation. Room's supposed to be empty now, but regulations required keeping it sealed permanently. Someone wanted in pretty badly, I observed, examining the damage. The door had been attacked with rocks, metal pipes, bare hands. Deep scratches in the steel looked like fingernails. Whoever made them had been desperate, violent, irrational. My radio crackled. "Team 3 to base. We've found something at the eastern perimeter. You need to see this." We hurried across the complex to where Team 3 had set up near a collapsed fence line. What they'd found made my blood run cold. A trail of clothing and personal items scattered across 50 yards of desert. Shirt, pants, shoes, wallet, phone, watch. All leading away from the mine toward open desert. "These match the description of what Robert Morgan was wearing," one of the team members said, checking photos from the missing persons reports. "But there's no body, just the clothes. Like he undressed while walking. Webb said. Why would someone do that? Hypothermia victims sometimes undress, Nez offered. Terminal burrowing, it's called. But it's 80 degrees out here. That doesn't apply. I knelt by the shoes. They'd been removed carefully, not torn off. Untied, stepped out of, left behind. He was walking deliberately, not running, not panicking, just walking into the desert and shedding everything as he went. Where's the body, though? Webb demanded. Trail just stops after about 50 yards. We followed the trail to its end. At the final clothing item, Robert Morgan's watch, there was nothing beyond. No footprints, no body, no indication what happened next. He'd simply ceased to exist at that point. This doesn't make sense, Webb said, frustration clear in his voice. Bodies don't just disappear. Even in the desert there should be something. Bones, blood, signs of predation. Dr. Reeves' voice came over the radio, tense. All teams, electromagnetic activity is spiking. Readings increasing rapidly. I'm seeing patterns similar to yesterday's event. Everyone should consider evacuating. We're not leaving, Nez replied. Not without searching the main shaft area. Your call, but whatever generates that signal, it's waking up. Webb looked at me. Sullivan? I thought about the 5 missing people. About Richard Harper, who'd spent 3 years catatonic before dying. About Jennings, who'd suffered 8 years of nightmares. About the voice that called through radios and probably through dreams, and possibly through something even more direct. We keep searching, I decided, but carefully. First sign of the voice, first hint of compulsion, we pull back immediately. We approached the main shaft entrance with the full search team. The steel door was still sealed, locks intact. But something had changed since yesterday. The cool air flowing from gaps around the frame was now warm, almost hot. And the smell was stronger. That organic, unpleasant odor that seemed wrong coming from a sealed mine. Doors heating up, one of the team members said, pressing his hand against the steel. Interior temperature must be rising. Or something inside is generating heat, Dr. Reeves said, checking her monitors. The electromagnetic readings are centered on the shaft. Whatever's down there, it's active. Nez tried to peer through the gaps around the door, but it was too dark to see anything. We need to open this. It's the only way to know for sure if anyone's inside. The door's sealed for a reason, Dr. Reeves protested. Contamination, structural instability, God knows what else. Opening it could be catastrophic. 5 people are missing, I said. If there's any chance they're in there, we have to look. Even if it kills us too? That's the job. Dr. Reeves didn't argue further. She ordered her hazmat team to prepare for breach, breaking out cutting equipment and respiratory gear. The search and rescue team set up portable lights facing the door, illuminating the entrance. Everything felt wrong. The heat radiating from the steel, the smell, the way the air seemed to thicken around the shaft. While they prepared the equipment, I noticed something carved into the concrete wall beside the door. Fresh markings, made recently with something sharp. I used my flashlight to read them. It called me home, can't leave, have to stay. It knows my name. The messages were in different handwriting styles. Multiple people had carved these words, probably different times. The last one was dated 10/18, 3 days ago. Jennifer Blackwood had been here 3 days ago, alive, coherent enough to carve a message, but trapped somehow, unable to leave. Look at this, I called out to the others. Everyone gathered around reading the desperate words. The implications were staggering. The missing people weren't dead. They were here, at the mine, held by some force they couldn't escape. And they'd been trying to communicate, leaving messages for anyone who might find them. "We're opening that door," Nez said firmly. "No more discussion." The cutting equipment screamed to life, sparks flying as it bit into the locks. It took 20 minutes to breach the seals. 20 minutes of rising tension as electromagnetic readings continued climbing and the temperature around the door increased noticeably. Finally, the last lock gave way. The door swung open on protesting hinges, revealing darkness beyond. Hot air rushed out, carrying with it that terrible smell and something else. A sound. Faint, but distinct. Voices. Multiple voices talking in overlapping whispers I couldn't quite make out. "Jesus Christ," someone muttered. Dr. Reeves stepped forward with her equipment, scanning the interior. Air quality is poor, but breathable. High particulate count, some chemical contamination. Temperature is 102 degrees Fahrenheit and rising. Radiation levels are actually normal, below what I'd expect from a uranium mine. "The voices," Webb said. "Anyone else hear them?" We all did. Dozens of voices, maybe hundreds, creating a chorus of whispers that echoed up from deep in the shaft. I couldn't distinguish words, but the tone was clear. Desperate, pleading, angry, afraid. "Rescue team, with me," I said, pulling on a respirator. "Everyone else stays at the entrance. We go down, assess the situation, and come back up. 20 minutes maximum." "I'm coming," Webb insisted. "Me too," Nez added. Dr. Reeves assigned 2 of her hazmat specialists to accompany us. 5 people total, descending into a sealed mine that had been closed for 45 years because something inside had driven people insane. The entrance tunnel sloped downward at a steep angle, carved roughly from rock and reinforced with timber supports that looked dangerously unstable. Our flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing walls streaked with mineral deposits and standing water. The temperature increased with every step. The voices grew louder. Still whispers, still unintelligible, but definitely human. And underneath them a familiar pulsing rhythm, the breathing pattern from the radio static. "Electromagnetic activity is off the scale," one of the hazmat specialists reported, checking his handheld monitor. "I've never seen readings like this. It's like being inside an MRI machine." We continued deeper. The tunnel branched several times, but we followed the main shaft, descending steadily. After maybe 300 feet, the timber supports gave way to bare rock carved in strange patterns. Not natural erosion. Deliberate designs cut into the stone. Symbols that hurt to look at directly. Geometric patterns that seemed to shift when viewed peripherally. "Who made these?" Webb asked, running his gloved hand over the carvings. "Not the mining company," Nez said. "These are old. Really old. Predating any known Native American culture in this region." "How is that possible?" "It's not, but here they are." The whispers were words now, still overlapping but occasionally clear. "Come down. Stay with us. Can't leave. It keeps us. Forever. Join us. Stay." "Are those the missing people?" Webb asked, voice shaking. "I don't know," I admitted. "But we're about to find out." The tunnel opened into a larger chamber, maybe 40 feet across. Our lights revealed a nightmare. The walls were covered in more of those geometric patterns, carved so densely they covered every surface. The floor was littered with objects. Tools from the mining operation, personal items, clothing, bones. Human bones. Dozens of skeletons scattered across the chamber, some clearly very old, others more recent. And among them, moving in the shadows at the edges of our lights, were figures. Living people. Or what had been people. They looked wrong, skin pale and waxy, eyes reflecting our flashlight beams with an unnatural shine. They moved slowly, deliberately, staying just beyond clear view. But I counted at least 7 of them, maybe more. FBI, I called out, voice echoing. We're here to help. Can you understand me? The figures stopped moving. The whispers ceased. For a moment, complete silence except for our breathing and the hum of electromagnetic equipment. Then one of them stepped into the light. I recognized him from photographs. David Huerta, the software engineer from Durango who disappeared 2 nights ago. But he'd changed. His skin had taken on a translucent quality, veins visible beneath the surface. His eyes were solid black, no whites, no pupils, and when he opened his mouth to speak, his voice was distorted, harmonized with other voices like multiple people talking at once. You shouldn't have come, he said. It wants you now. David, we're here to help, I said, trying to stay calm. We can get you out, get you medical attention. No one leaves, he replied. We tried. It won't allow it. We're part of it now. Part of what? Webb demanded. David gestured to the walls, the patterns, the darkness beyond our lights. It's been here for thousands of years. Sleeping, waiting. The miners found it in 1951, woke it up. It's been calling ever since, collecting, growing. What is it? I asked. Old, David said. Older than your species, older than language or thought or time. It was here before humans walked this land, and it will be here long after. The other figures moved closer, faces becoming visible in the flashlight beams. I recognized Maria Etzity, the schoolteacher, Jennifer Blackwood, the photographer, 2 people who might have been Robert and Jennifer Morgan, though their features were so altered I couldn't be certain. Where's Thomas Begay? Nez asked. David pointed to a pile of bones in the corner. He resisted too long. The integration failed. Most fail. 1 in 20 survives the process. What process? Dr. Reeves asked, her scientific curiosity overriding fear. Becoming part of it. The voice calls, we answer. We come here, descend into the deep places, and it changes us, rewrites us, makes us part of its collective. A collective consciousness, Dr. Reeves breathed. Are you saying there's some kind of intelligence down here? Something that assimilates human minds? Intelligence is the wrong word, David said. It's more like instinct, like hunger. It needs minds to anchor itself, voices to speak through. Otherwise, it fades back into dormancy. The miners provided dozens of minds before they sealed the shaft. But eventually, those voices wore out, and it needed new ones. So it calls. The radio static, I said. That's it reaching out. It can't leave the deep places, but it can send its voice through stone and air and electromagnetic waves. Anyone who hears it really hears it, becomes marked, and eventually they answer the call. But you're all still conscious, Webb protested. Still talking. You're not mindless drones. For now, Maria said, her voice also harmonized and strange. The integration takes time, days, weeks. We retain individuality until the process completes. Then we become part of the greater whole, part of it. And you can't resist? I asked. We don't want to, Jennifer Blackwood replied. It shows us things, ancient memories, impossible knowledge, time before time, existence before existence. It's beautiful and terrible, and we're privileged to be part of it. That's the parasite talking, Dr. Reeves said sharply. Whatever's infected you is manipulating your perception, making you want to stay. Perhaps, David said. Or perhaps we've been freed from the prison of isolated consciousness. You wouldn't understand. Not until you join us. The electromagnetic readings spiked dramatically. Dr. Reeves' monitor screamed a warning. "It's coming," David said, and all the changed people spoke in perfect unison. "It's coming." A sound rose from deeper in the mine. Not the whisper voices anymore. Something bigger, deeper, resonating through stone and bone. The breathing pattern but amplified 1,000 times. And underneath it, that word, stay. "We need to leave," I shouted. "Now!" We ran. The changed people didn't pursue. They just watched with their black eyes as we scrambled back up the tunnel. The voice followed us, growing louder, more insistent, and with it came the compulsion. The overwhelming urge to stop running, turn around, descend deeper into the mine. I felt it trying to sink hooks into my brain. Felt it reaching for something primal and override every survival instinct. But I fought. We all fought, helping each other when the compulsion became too strong. Webb stumbled. I grabbed him, pulled him along. "Move! Move! Move!" "I have to go back," he gasped. "It wants me. It knows my name." "It doesn't know shit," I snarled. "Keep moving." Nez was practically carrying one of the hazmat specialists who'd frozen completely, eyes glazed, muttering about staying forever. Dr. Reeves was ahead of all of us, running with surprising speed despite her equipment. The tunnel seemed longer climbing up than it had going down, like the mine itself was stretching, trying to keep us. Shadows moved in ways they shouldn't. The walls seemed to breathe. But finally, we reached the entrance. The sunlight hit us like salvation. We collapsed outside, gasping, while the search team rushed over with water and medical attention. Behind us, from deep in the mine, the voice thundered one last time, "Stay!" Then the steel door slammed shut. Not from wind, not from anyone pulling it. It simply closed on its own, locks clicking back into place. Dr. Reeves was hyperventilating, struggling with her respirator. "What the hell did we just see? What was that?" "Something old," I said. "Something that should have stayed buried." "The missing people," Nez said. "They're alive, but they're not. They've been converted somehow. Assimilated," Dr. Reeves corrected. "Into some kind of collective intelligence. I've never heard of anything like this. No natural phenomenon, no known organism. This is impossible," Webb finished. "Except we all saw it." My phone buzzed, text from unknown number. "You can't stop it. It's waking up, and it's hungry." I showed the others. Nobody spoke for a long moment. "We need to seal this place," I finally said. "Permanently. Fill in the shaft. Bury it under concrete, make sure nothing can ever get out." "What about the people inside?" one of the search team members asked. "The missing victims?" "They're gone," Nez said quietly. "Not dead, but gone. No longer human. No longer salvageable. We can't just abandon them," the team member protested. "We can't save them either," I said. "Not without joining them. Whatever that thing is, it's beyond our capability to fight." Dr. Reeves was already on her phone, calling federal authorities. "I need containment protocols enacted immediately. Xenobiological threat, possibly intelligent, definitely dangerous. We need the site quarantined, personnel screened, and the shaft permanently sealed." The voice in the mine had been growing stronger for weeks, reaching out through radios, calling victims one by one, building its collection of minds. And now we'd opened the door, given it direct access to the surface for the first time in decades. What had we done? "Everyone needs to leave," Dr. Reeves said after finishing her call. "Federal response team is inbound with equipment and containment specialists. We're to evacuate the area immediately and report for decontamination screening." "What about monitoring the site until they arrive?" Nez asked. "Unmanned drones. No one stays here. Those are direct orders from the top." We packed up quickly, everyone casting nervous glances at the sealed shaft entrance. The air around it seemed to shimmer with heat, despite the relatively cool morning temperature. And if I listened carefully, I thought I could still hear whispers. Distant, patient, waiting. The convoy headed back to Shiprock in silence. Everyone was processing what we'd witnessed, trying to fit it into a framework that made sense. But there was no framework for this. No training, no procedure, no precedent. At the sheriff's department, federal agents were already waiting. Men in dark suits with badges from agencies I didn't recognize. They separated us, interviewed us individually, collected our equipment, and told us the investigation was being elevated to classified status. My interview took 3 hours. I recounted everything: the disappearances, the radio static, our descent into the mine, what we'd found. The agent taking my statement showed no emotion, just took notes and asked clarifying questions. "The entities you encountered," he said. "The changed people, did they display hostility?" "No, they seemed content, like they wanted to be there. And the primary intelligence, the thing they claimed to be part of. Did you see it directly?" "No, just heard its voice, felt its presence. But I believe it's real, whatever it is." "We believe it too," the agent said. "This isn't the first incident of this kind. Won't be the last. There are things in the deep places of the world that humans aren't meant to disturb." "What happens now?" "The mine gets sealed. The area becomes restricted military zone. And you forget everything you saw, sign the non-disclosure agreement, go home, and never discuss this case with anyone." "And the missing people?" "Casualties of something beyond our understanding. They'll be listed as presumed dead, bodies never recovered. Their families will receive closure, if not truth." "That's not right." "No," the agent agreed. "It's not, but it's necessary." I signed the papers. What else could I do? Tell the world there's an ancient intelligence in a New Mexico mine that assimilates human consciousness? Start a panic? Create a pilgrimage site for curious researchers who'd just become more victims? Webb and Nez signed too. So did Dr. Reeves and her team. We were all officially forbidden from discussing the case, all threatened with federal prosecution if we violated the agreement. By sunset, federal contractors had already begun pouring concrete into the mine shaft. By morning, military police had established a perimeter around the entire complex. Within a week, the site would be erased. Buildings demolished, equipment removed, earth itself scraped away and replaced. But the voice would remain, deep underground, calling out through stone and time, looking for minds to absorb, consciousness to collect. Maybe dormant for years, maybe decades, but always there, always hungry, always patient. My last night in New Mexico, I sat in that motel room and listened to the radio. Every station was clear. No static, no whispers, no commands. But I knew it was temporary. The thing in the mine would reach out again eventually, would find new victims, would grow, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. I left Shiprock on October 24, 2019. Flew back to Phoenix, filed my final reports, and tried to return to normal cases. Fraud investigations, interstate crime, the mundane work of federal law enforcement. But normal never came back. The nightmares started 3 days after I left New Mexico. Same dream every time. I'm standing at the mine entrance, door open, darkness beyond. And from that darkness comes the voice. Not saying stay anymore. Saying my name. Over and over. Inviting me back. Telling me there's a place waiting. That I'm expected. That I belong there. I wake up with the taste of earth in my mouth. The smell of that mine on my skin. The conviction that if I just go back, if I just descend into those carved tunnels and join the others, everything will finally make sense. Webb calls me every few weeks. He has the dreams too. So does Nez. Dr. Reeves left her job and moved to Maine, trying to get as far from New Mexico as possible. It didn't help. The voice doesn't care about distance. Once it knows you, once you've been marked, it can always find you. The official investigation closed with a 2-page report. 5 people disappeared, presumed dead, bodies not recovered, cause unknown. Families were told their loved ones likely got lost in the desert and succumbed to exposure. Evidence supported accidental death. Case closed. But I know the truth. They're not dead. They're still there, in the deep places, part of something ancient and terrible. Their consciousness assimilated, their identities eroded, their existence redefined as part of a collective that predates human civilization. And they're not alone. A search I'm not supposed to have conducted shows similar disappearances near old mines across the Southwest. Patterns going back decades, maybe centuries. How many sealed shafts hide similar intelligences? How many ancient things sleep beneath the earth, reaching out when disturbed, calling victims to become part of them? I tried to bury myself in work, took on extra cases, volunteered for assignments in other states, anything to stay busy. But the dreams persist. The voice gets clearer each time. And I've started having new symptoms. Gaps in memory, moments where I look at my hands and they seem unfamiliar. Times when I'm driving and realize I've missed several exits, heading north without conscious decision, heading toward New Mexico. Webb called yesterday. He'd driven to Shiprock without meaning to. Woke up in his car parked on Highway 491, 3 miles from where the mine used to be. Said he had no memory of the trip, just found himself there at 3 a.m. with engine running and an overwhelming urge to walk into the desert. He turned around, drove home. But he knows it'll happen again. We both know. Dr. Reeves published a paper under a pseudonym, Theoretical Discussion of Collective Consciousness in Theoretical Xenobiological Contexts. It was rejected by every journal. Too speculative, they said. Too fantastical. No basis in established science. But 3 researchers contacted her privately. They'd encountered similar phenomena, different locations, different contexts, but the same pattern. Ancient intelligence in isolated places, reaching out through sound and electromagnetic waves, calling victims to join them. It's everywhere. We're not alone with this knowledge, and that's almost worse than being the only ones who know. The federal contractors sealed the New Mexico mine, filled the shaft with concrete, demolished the surface structures, smoothed over the land. Satellite photos show empty desert now. No sign a mining operation ever existed. But I have dreams about cracks forming in that concrete, hairline fractures spreading, the voice finding ways through. And in my dreams, I see David Huerta and Maria Et City and Jennifer Blackwood emerging from the ground, eyes black, skin translucent, voices harmonized with something ancient and hungry. They're waiting for me. I know this with absolute certainty. A place has been prepared, a role in the collective reserved, and every day it becomes harder to resist the call. I'm writing this in case I don't resist much longer, in case I wake up one morning in New Mexico without memory of driving there, standing at a crater where the mine used to be, hearing my name called from deep beneath the earth. Someone should know what happened. Someone should understand that the disappearances aren't over, that the voice is still reaching out, that deep below the desert, something ancient and patient waits for new minds to absorb. The official file is closed. The case is solved, such as it ever can be. But the truth is darker and stranger than any report could contain. 5 people went missing near an old uranium mine in New Mexico. They're still there, still calling, still waiting for others to join them. And somewhere in the deep places of my mind, I'm beginning to want to. The static has started appearing on my car radio again. Just at night, just when I'm alone. Same pulsing rhythm. But now it doesn't say stay. Now it says my name. And I'm starting to wonder if resisting is worth the effort. If maybe the voice is right. If maybe joining the collective would bring the peace and understanding I've been seeking my entire career. These thoughts aren't my own. I know that. Some influence is creeping in, changing my perception, making me receptive to the call. But knowing doesn't help. The voice is patient. It has all the time in the world. And I'm only human. This is Special Agent Samuel Sullivan, FBI, signing off on case file numbered NM1147R. If you're reading this, I'm probably gone, probably in New Mexico, descended into some reopened shaft, becoming part of something I can't begin to understand. Tell my daughter I'm sorry. Tell my ex-wife it wasn't her fault. Tell the Bureau I followed procedure right up until I couldn't anymore. And if you ever hear static on your radio that pulses like breathing, if you ever hear a voice underneath telling you to stay, if you ever feel compelled to drive to isolated desert locations at night, run. Don't investigate. Don't try to understand. Just run and keep running, and pray the voice doesn't learn your name, because once it knows you, it never forgets. It's always there in the deep places, calling out. And sooner or later, we all answer. The call came through at 2:17 a.m. on September 3rd, 2021. I was 3 weeks into mandatory leave after the Albuquerque incident. Sitting in my apartment in Santa Fe, trying to sleep and failing like I had every night since they'd pulled me off active duty. The phone's buzz cut through the silence like a scream. Agent Morgan. I didn't recognize the voice. Male, older, gravelly, with exhaustion or cigarettes or both. Who is this? Sheriff Tom Garrett, Luna County. Got your number from the Albuquerque field office. They said you were the one to call about unusual situations. I sat up, turned on the lamp. Unusual situations, that's what they were calling it now. Not the thing Morgan saw that made her shoot her partner, or the incident that got Morgan put on psychiatric evaluation. Just unusual situations. I'm on leave, Sheriff. Call the field office. They'll send someone else. Already did. They said this falls under your specialty. Said you'd want to hear about it. My specialty. Things that don't make sense. Things that shouldn't exist. I was quiet for a long time. Through the window, Santa Fe stretched out dark and peaceful. Normal. Safe. Everything the last 3 weeks had proven was an illusion. I'm listening, I said finally. There's a motel off Route 285, about 40 miles south of my jurisdiction, technically federal land, called the Starlight Motor Lodge. You know it? No. Nobody does. That's the problem. Been getting calls about it for 3 days now. People saying they saw a motel that wasn't there before. Lit up, open for business, but when they go back to find it, it's gone. Or they check in and can't check out. Or they check in and nobody ever sees them again. People are missing? 4 that we know of. Maybe more. It's hard to track because nobody can agree on where this place actually is. GPS coordinates don't match. Maps show empty desert. But people keep finding it anyway. I thought about saying no. Thought about hanging up and going back to pretending I could sleep. Thought about the mandatory therapy sessions and the concerned looks from colleagues and the way my hand shook when I held my service weapon now. Then I thought about 4 missing people and a motel that shouldn't exist. I'll be there in 3 hours, I said. Sheriff Garrett gave me coordinates to meet him at a diner in Carrizozo, a dying town on the edge of nowhere. I packed quickly, standard field kit, weapon I wasn't technically cleared to carry, and the bottle of sleeping pills I definitely wasn't supposed to mix with field work. Left a message with my therapist's office that I'd miss tomorrow's session. She'd be pissed, but I'd deal with that later. The drive south on 285 was hypnotic. 3 in the morning, no other cars, just endless highway cutting through desert that looked black under the moonless sky. My headlights carved a tunnel through the darkness, and beyond that tunnel, nothing. Like the world ended at the edge of my high beams. I'd grown up in New Mexico. Born in Las Cruces, raised in Roswell, spent my whole life in the Southwest. The desert was in my blood, familiar as breathing. But tonight it felt different. Hostile. Like it was watching me drive through its territory and didn't appreciate the intrusion. My phone, GPS, said I had 2 hours left when the first strange thing happened. A sign appeared in my headlights, green and white like every highway sign, but the text was wrong. Starlight Motor Lodge, next exit. There was no exit. I was on a straight stretch of highway with nothing but empty land on both sides. But the sign was real, solid, reflective paint catching my lights exactly like it should. I slowed down, looking for the exit the sign promised. Nothing, just more highway. I checked my odometer and kept driving. A mile later, the same sign appeared again. Starlight Motor Lodge, next exit. This time I stopped. Put the car in park, turned on my hazards, and got out. The night was cold. Temperature must have dropped 40 degrees since sunset. Wind moved through invisible vegetation, creating sounds like whispers. The sign stood 20 feet from the road, exactly where highway signs stand. I walked up to it, touched it. Solid metal, cool under my fingers. Real. But when I looked past it into the desert, there was nothing. No motel, no lights, no structures. Just darkness and distance. I took a photo with my phone, noting the timestamp and GPS coordinates. Then I got back in the car and kept driving. The sign appeared 3 more times before I reached Carrizozo. Same message, same location, but definitely 3 different signs. My odometer proved I'd driven 12 miles between them. The diner was called Rosie's, a lonely rectangle of light in the sleeping town. Inside, one customer sat in a back booth. Big man, 60-something, wearing a sheriff's uniform and the exhausted expression of someone who hadn't slept in days. "Agent Morgan," he said, as I slid into the booth across from him. Not a question. "Sheriff Garrett, coffee? Please." He signaled the waitress, an elderly woman who looked like she'd been working there since the diner opened. She poured without speaking, gave me a look that might have been sympathy or warning, and retreated to the kitchen. "You saw the signs," Garrett said. "How did you know?" "Everyone sees them. That's how it starts. You're driving 285 at night, signs appear promising a motel. Most people ignore them. Smart ones do, anyway. But some people..." He trailed off, staring into his coffee. "Some people stop," I finished. "Yeah, they stop, and then things get complicated." He pulled out a folder, spread photographs across the table. The first showed a standard roadside motel. Single story, maybe 20 rooms. Classic 50s architecture with that distinctive Googie style. Neon sign out front spelling Starlight in pink and blue. Cars in the parking lot, lights in some windows. It looked completely ordinary. "When was this taken?" I asked. "September 1st, 2 nights ago. Truck driver named Dale Simmons took it from the highway around midnight. Said he thought about stopping, but something felt off, so he kept driving. Next morning he tried to find it again using his truck's GPS log. Nothing there. Just empty desert. Could be photo manipulation. Could be. Except we've got 4 more photos from different people, different nights, all showing the same motel in different locations. And I've got witness statements from people who actually checked in." He showed me more photos. Same motel, slightly different angles. In some, the parking lot was full, in others, nearly empty. But always the same building, same neon sign, same wrong feeling that radiated even through photographs. "Tell me about the missing people," I said. Garrett pulled out a second folder. First disappearance was August 27th. Stephen Blake, 42, insurance salesman from Alamogordo. Last seen at a gas station in Carrizozo around 9 p.m. Told the attendant he was driving to Roswell for a conference. Never arrived. His company reported him missing next day. "And you think he stopped at this motel?" "His credit card was used at 11:47 p.m. that night. Transaction labeled Starlight Motor Lodge, Room 14. But there's no Starlight Motor Lodge in our records. No business license, no tax documents, no nothing. The credit card company can't trace where the transaction was processed. It just exists on his statement. That's impossible. Yeah, well, welcome to my week." He showed me 3 more cases. Sarah Vega, 36, nurse from El Paso. Michael Torres, 51, construction worker from Socorro. And most recently, Rebecca Hall, 29, graduate student from Santa Fe driving to Las Cruces for research. All 4 disappeared on Route 285 at night. All 4 had credit card transactions from the Starlight Motor Lodge within hours of vanishing. All 4 were never seen again. "What about their cars?" I asked. Stephen Blake's Honda was found abandoned on the shoulder near mile marker 117. Clean, locked, nothing missing. Sarah Vega's Toyota turned up 2 days later in a rest area parking lot. Same thing. Pristine, no signs of struggle. The other 2 vehicles haven't been found yet. Families? Devastated, confused, angry. I don't have answers for them, Agent Morgan. I don't even have a crime scene, just credit card transactions from a motel that doesn't exist and vehicles showing up in random locations. I studied the photographs again. The motel looked so normal, inviting even. The kind of place you'd stop if you were tired, needed a room, wanted to get off the highway for the night. Nothing threatening, nothing suspicious, but something about it made my skin crawl. "The sign," I said, "the one I saw, it said, 'Next exit,' but there was no exit. How do people find this place if there's no access road?" "That's part of the mystery. According to witnesses who saw it but didn't stop, the exit appears and disappears. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. One guy said he drove past it, turned around to check again, and it was gone. 15 seconds, and an entire off-ramp just vanished. What about satellite imagery?" "Checked, nothing. That whole stretch of 285 is mapped extensively, updated quarterly. No structures, no roads, no development of any kind. Just desert and the occasional rock formation. But people are staying there, charging rooms to their credit cards. Some of them are even coming back." Garrett nodded. 3 witnesses checked in and checked out successfully. They're the ones who gave us photos and descriptions. I interviewed all of them. Want to hear what they said? "Yes." He pulled out a tablet, called up his notes. First witness is Dale Simmons, the truck driver I mentioned. He didn't actually stay there, just took the photo. But he said the place gave him a bad feeling. Couldn't explain it more than that. Just wrongness. Intuition. Maybe. Second witness is Patricia Coleman, 67, retired teacher from Albuquerque. She checked in on August 30th, stayed 1 night in room 7. Said the room was clean, comfortable, exactly what she expected. But the other guests bothered her. How so? She said they weren't right, too quiet, too still. She passed a man in the hallway, and he didn't acknowledge her. Just stared at the wall. She saw a woman sitting in a parked car in the lot at 3 a.m., not moving, not doing anything. And when she tried to talk to the desk clerk about it, he just smiled and said everything was fine. Did she get a name? Description of the clerk? No name. Said he was young, maybe 30, dark hair. very polite, but his eyes were wrong. Wrong how? She couldn't explain it. Just wrong. She left early next morning without eating the complimentary breakfast. Third witness. James Rodriguez, 43, architect from Phoenix. Stayed 2 nights in room 11. He said the motel was perfect. Too perfect. Every surface was clean, every fixture worked flawlessly. No wear, no damage, no signs of age. Like it had been built yesterday and never used. And that bothered him. It bothered him that the guest book in his room had entries going back to 1957. Handwritten notes from travelers thanking the management, commenting on their stay. But the paper looked new. The ink looked fresh. Entries from 60 years ago looked identical to entries from last week. I thought about that. A motel that appeared and disappeared. That processed credit card transactions without a physical location. That had been collecting guest signatures for 6 decades despite not existing in any official capacity. There's something else, Garrett said quietly. Rodriguez said he woke up at 2 a.m. on his second night and looked out his window. The parking lot was full, maybe 15 cars, but every single vehicle had its interior light on. And in every car someone was sitting. Just sitting, not moving, not sleeping. Just sitting there with the dome light on, staring straight ahead. Did he investigate? Started to. Opened his door, stepped outside. Said the temperature was wrong. Should have been cold, but it felt like summer. Maybe 90 degrees. And the air smelled like rain, even though the sky was clear. He got spooked, went back inside, locked the door. In the morning, the parking lot was empty except for his car. He's lucky, I said. Yeah, I think so too. I think the 4 missing people did something the lucky ones didn't. Broke some rule, crossed some line, and the motel kept them. Or something in the motel did. Garrett looked at me for a long moment. The field office said you had experience with things that don't follow normal rules. That true? Unfortunately. What's your professional assessment? I could have lied, could have said it was probably a normal criminal operation, using sophisticated techniques to confuse investigators. Could have suggested human trafficking or an elaborate kidnapping scheme. But I was tired of lying. I think there's something on Route 285 that shouldn't exist, I said. Something that's been there a long time, maybe always. Something that takes people, and I think the motel is how it does it. What is it? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. How? I finished my coffee. Cold now, but I drank it anyway. Same way the missing people did. I'm going to check in. Garrett's expression went from exhausted to alarmed. That's suicide. Maybe, but it's the only way to get answers. I can't authorize that. Can't let you walk into a situation that's already claimed 4 people. You're not authorizing anything. I'm on leave, remember? Officially, I'm not even here. I'm just a civilian taking a drive down 285. Agent Morgan, those 4 people are still out there, somewhere. Maybe in that motel, maybe somewhere else. But they're still alive until we prove otherwise, and the only way to find them is to follow their trail. And if you disappear too, then you'll have 5 missing people instead of 4. But you'll also have my testimony, my observations, whatever I can document before. I trailed off. Before the motel takes you too, Garrett finished. Yeah. He was quiet for a while, thinking. Outside the diner windows, the sky was starting to lighten. Dawn, still an hour away, but night was loosening its grip. Soon, this would all feel less ominous, more manageable. Daylight had that effect. If you're doing this, Garrett said finally, you're doing it smart. I'll set up check-in protocols, scheduled call times. Miss one check-in and I send everything I've got to the state police and FBI. Deal? Deal. And you wear a wire, body camera too. I want documentation of everything you see. Agreed. When? Tonight. This place seems to operate after dark. I'll drive 285 starting around 10 p.m., look for the signs, stop when the exit appears. And then? Then I check into room 14. Same room Stephen Blake charged to his credit card. See what he saw. Figure out what happened to him. You really think you can find answers? I think I can find something. Whether it's answers or just more questions, we'll see. Garrett gave me his personal cell number and made me promise to call every 2 hours starting from when I found the motel. We worked out a code system, certain phrases that would indicate I was in danger, needed extraction, or had discovered something critical. Then I drove back to Santa Fe in morning light, everything looking normal and safe and completely different from the night drive down. Hard to believe the same highway could feel so wrong after dark and so benign in daylight. I spent the day preparing, reviewed the case files Garrett had given me, studied the photographs, memorized the witness statements, checked my equipment, body camera small enough to hide under clothing, backup phone with GPS tracker, audio recorder disguised as a pen. All fully charged, all tested and working. I didn't tell anyone what I was planning. My therapist would have tried to stop me. The field office would have ordered me to stand down. My parents would have worried. Better to ask forgiveness than permission, assuming I survived to ask for either. Around 8 p.m., I showered, dressed in civilian clothes and packed a small overnight bag. Made it look like a normal road trip. Tourist stopping at a motel, nothing unusual. I left my actual FBI credentials at home, but carried my backup ID and concealed carry permit. The drive back to Route 285 felt different this time. Anticipation mixed with dread, curiosity tangled with fear. I'd been scared before on operations, but this was something else. This wasn't a human threat I could predict and counter. This was something unknown, something that broke fundamental rules about reality. The Albuquerque incident had taught me that such things existed. I'd seen something in that warehouse that couldn't be explained, couldn't be rationalized. My partner had seen it too, right before he tried to kill me, before I'd had to shoot him in self-defense. Whatever was in the warehouse, it had changed him, hollowed him out and filled him with something else. And when I looked in his eyes as he died, I saw the thing looking back at me. Saw it promise that this wasn't over. 3 weeks of therapy hadn't erased that image, hadn't made me forget what I'd learned, that the world contained things that shouldn't exist, and some of them noticed when you noticed them. Maybe the motel was the same kind of thing. Maybe I was walking into another encounter with something that would break me like it broke my partner. But 4 people were missing, and I was the only one who believed something impossible was responsible. I reached the southern stretch of Route 285 around 10:30 p.m. Traffic was light, just the occasional truck or late-night traveler. The desert on both sides was invisible beyond my headlights, reduced to vague shapes and shadows. Temperature had dropped again, my dashboard reading showing 52 degrees. I drove slowly, watching for signs. Mile marker 115, 116, 117, nothing. Just highway and darkness, and the occasional reflective eyes of animals near the road. Then, at mile marker 119, I saw it. Starlight Motor Lodge, next exit. And this time, there was an exit. The off-ramp appeared in my headlights exactly where highway exits appear, a gentle curve leading away from the main road, marked with the usual yellow warning signs and reflectors. It looked completely normal, completely real. I slowed down, signaling even though there was no one behind me. My heart was pounding, mouth dry. This was it, the point of no return. Take the exit and enter whatever waited at that motel. Or keep driving and abandon 4 people who might still need help. Not really a choice. I took the exit. The off-ramp curved through darkness for maybe half a mile. No lights, no structures, just my headlights showing cracked asphalt and desert scrub on both sides. Then I crested a small rise, and there it was, the Starlight Motor Lodge. Exactly like the photographs. Single-story motor court wrapped around a parking lot. Classic 50s design. Neon sign glowing pink and blue. The word Starlight in script with a star dotting the I. Lights on in maybe half the rooms. Cars parked in front of several units. Office at the front with vacancy sign lit in red neon. It looked perfect. Normal. Inviting. And it felt completely wrong. I pulled into the parking lot, chose a space near the office, turned off my engine. The silence was immediate and total. No highway noise, no wind, no insects. Just silence. I checked my phone. No signal. GPS showed my location as empty desert 3 miles from the highway. But I could see the highway from here, see the occasional lights of passing vehicles. Time to call Garrett. I'd promised to check in when I found the place. But my phone wouldn't connect. No signal, no data, no emergency calls. Like I was in a dead zone. Or like the motel existed in a pocket where normal communications didn't work. I activated my body camera, positioned it to record through my shirt. Audio recorder on. Backup phone tracking. Everything I'd promised. Then I got out of the car. The temperature was wrong. Garrett's witness had mentioned this. Should have been in the 50s, but it felt like 80, warm and humid like summer. The air had that pre-rain smell, ozone and moisture, despite the clear sky. I walked toward the office. 6 other cars in the lot, all older models. A Buick from the 80s, a Ford pickup from the 90s, a Honda sedan maybe 10 years old. Nothing new. Nothing that looked like it belonged in 2021. Through the office window I could see a desk, a clerk standing behind it. Young guy, maybe 30, dark hair, smiling. I pushed open the door. A bell chimed. The clerk looked up. "Welcome to the Starlight Motor Lodge," he said. His voice was pleasant, professional. "Checking in?" "Yes, room for 1 night." "Of course. We have several available. Any preference?" "Room 14, I said, watching his reaction. His smile didn't change. "Certainly. Room 14 is available. May I see your ID and a credit card?" I handed them over. He processed them with old-fashioned mechanical credit card imprinter, the kind nobody used anymore. Wrote my information in a leather-bound ledger by hand. Precise, careful handwriting. "Will you be needing a wake-up call?" he asked. "No, thank you. The coffee maker in your room has complimentary coffee and tea. Ice machine is next to the office. Pool is closed for the season, but vending machines are available 24 hours. Appreciate it." He handed me a physical key, not a key card. Old brass key with a plastic diamond tag stamped with 14. "Checkout is at 11 a.m. Enjoy your stay." "Thanks." I turned to leave, then paused. "How long has this motel been here?" "Since 1957, he said without hesitation. "Family owned and operated for 64 years. Business been good? We get our share of travelers, people who need a place to stop, a place to rest. We take care of them." Something in how he said that last part made my skin crawl. But his smile never wavered. His eyes never left mine. And those eyes were wrong, just like Patricia Coleman had said. Not the color or shape. Something deeper. Like they were windows into empty rooms. "I'll let you get settled," he said. "Let me know if you need anything." I left the office, bell chiming again as the door closed. Walked across the parking lot to room 14, key heavy in my hand. The other cars sat silent, dark. No movement in any of the lit rooms, no sound at all. Room 14 was at the far end. corner unit. I unlocked it, pushed the door open. Standard motel room. Double bed, dresser, small bathroom, TV mounted on the wall. Clean, tidy, exactly what you'd expect. But it felt wrong. Just like everything else here felt wrong. I entered, locked the door behind me. Checked my phone again. Still no signal. Checked the body camera, still recording. Audio recorder capturing everything. I was in. Now, I just had to survive until morning. And figure out what happened to Stephen Blake, Sarah Vega, Michael Torres, and Rebecca Hall. 4 people who checked into this motel and never checked out. 4 people who might still be here somewhere. The room was exactly what a motel room should be. Generic landscape painting above the bed. Polyester bedspread in muted colors. Bland carpet that had been cleaned 10,000 times. TV remote on the nightstand. Everything correct, everything in place. But the smell was wrong. Not bad. Too clean, actually. Antiseptic, like a hospital. No trace of previous guests, no accumulated scent of old cigarettes or cheap cleaning products. It smelled like it had never been used. I pulled back the curtains to check the parking lot. 6 cars still, including mine, all sitting silent in the sodium vapor lights. No people visible anywhere. I let the curtain fall back. The clock on the nightstand read 11:47 p.m. Same time Stephen Blake had charged his credit card. Probably not a coincidence. I sat on the bed, pulled out my notebook, started documenting everything while it was fresh. The exit appearing, the drive to the motel, the clerk with wrong eyes, the too clean room. I wrote quickly, detailed, knowing that if something happened to me, this might be the only record. At midnight, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate steps passing my door. They stopped. For several seconds, nothing. Then a soft knock. "Housekeeping," a woman's voice called. At midnight? I stayed quiet, didn't answer. The doorknob rattled slightly, testing. Then the footsteps moved on, fading down the hallway. I got up, looked through the peephole. Empty hallway. Fluorescent lights buzzing. No one there. But I'd definitely heard footsteps. Definitely heard knocking. My body camera had recorded it. I checked the playback. Clear audio of footsteps and knocking. Video of empty hallway. Whatever was outside my door, the camera hadn't seen it. At 12:30 a.m., I decided to explore. I couldn't just sit in this room all night. I needed to understand the motel, needed to find clues about the missing people. I unlocked my door quietly, stepped into the hallway. The fluorescent lights flickered slightly, creating a strobing effect. The antiseptic smell was stronger out here, almost overwhelming. Ice machine hummed at the far end by the office. I walked slowly, checking each door I passed. Most rooms showed lights visible under the door cracks, but no sounds from inside. No TV audio, no conversations, no snoring. Just silence. Room 11. James Rodriguez had stayed here. The architect who'd seen the parked cars with interior lights on, people sitting motionless inside. I pressed my ear to the door. Nothing. I tried the knob, locked. Room 7. Patricia Coleman's room, same thing. Locked, silent. Room 14 was mine. That left plenty of other rooms to investigate. I continued down the hallway. At the corner, I found a door marked Employees Only. I tried it. Unlocked. Inside was a utility room. Shelves stocked with cleaning supplies and linens. Everything organized with obsessive neatness. I took photos, documenting everything. At the back of the utility room was another door, this one unlocked too. I opened it carefully. Stairs leading down. Not what you'd expect in a single-story motel. But there they were, concrete stairs descending into darkness below the building. A basement or service level. The air rising from below was cold and damp, completely different from the warm atmosphere of the motel. I pulled out my flashlight, started down. The stairs went deeper than they should. 20 steps, 30, 40. Way too deep for a simple basement. The walls were bare concrete, no decoration, no paint. Maintenance pipes ran along the ceiling. The temperature dropped with each step. At the bottom was a corridor. My flashlight showed doors on both sides, numbered like motel rooms but in a different sequence. 101, 102, 103. Lower level rooms. Or something else. I tried the first door, 101. Locked. But through a gap at the bottom, I could see light. Someone was in there. "Hello?" I called out. "This is the FBI. Is anyone in there?" No response. But I heard something. A soft sound, almost like breathing. Or crying. "If you can hear me, make a sound. Let me know you're there." Still, nothing. But that soft sound continued. Rhythmic. Disturbing. I moved to 102. Same thing. Light under the door. No response to my calls. At 103, I heard something different. A voice, male, repeating the same phrase over and over. "It's fine here. Everything's fine here. It's fine here. Everything's fine here." "Sir? Can you hear me?" "What's your name?" The voice continued without interruption. "It's fine here. Everything's fine here. It's fine here. Everything's fine here." I tried the door. Locked. I considered breaking it down, but something stopped me. Some instinct said that breaching these rooms would be a mistake. That whatever was behind these doors wasn't ready to be found. I counted 8 rooms total in the lower corridor, all locked, all with light showing underneath. 8 rooms that shouldn't exist in a single-story building. At the end of the corridor was another door, this one different. Heavy metal, industrial-looking. No number. A sign mounted at eye level. Authorized, personnel only, maintenance. I tried the handle. It turned. Beyond was a larger space, maybe 30 feet square. My flashlight swept across strange equipment. Machinery I didn't recognize. Panels covered with dials and switches. Cables running everywhere. In the center of the room was something that looked like a surgical chair, restraints attached. And on the walls, photographs. Dozens of them, hundreds. I stepped closer, shining my light on the images. They were guest photos, Polaroids and printed pictures spanning decades. Travelers, families, couples, solo drivers. All smiling, all seemingly happy. Each photo had a date and room number written on the border. I found one dated August 27, 2021. Room 14. Stephen Blake smiling at the camera, standing in front of his Honda. Next to it, August 28th. Room 7. Sarah Vega. August 30th. Room 11. Michael Torres. September 1st. Room 9. Rebecca Hall. They were all here, all 4 missing people, photographed at the motel. Proof they'd been here. Proof this place was real. But where were they now? I kept searching the wall, looking for patterns. The photos went back years, decades. 1957, 1963, 1975, 1988. Different people, different eras, but always the same pose. Standing in front of the motel, smiling. And something else. In every photo, visible in the background, someone watching from a window. Just a shadow, a silhouette, but definitely present. The same figure in every single photograph over 64 years. I took pictures of everything with my phone, though I knew they might not survive whatever happened next. The body camera was recording too, capturing evidence that might never be reviewed if I didn't make it out. A sound behind me made me spin around. The clerk from the office stood in the doorway, still smiling. But his eyes, those empty eyes fixed on me. "You're not supposed to be down here." "Where are the missing people?" I demanded, hand moving toward my weapon. "Stephen Blake, Sarah Vega, where are they?" "They're not missing," he said. "They're guests, just like you." "I'm a federal agent. I'm conducting an investigation." "You're a guest," he repeated. "And guests have rules. One of those rules is staying in designated areas. The maintenance level is not designated." He took a step toward me. I drew my weapon. "Don't move. I'm armed and I will shoot." His smile didn't change. "That won't help. Nothing down here follows your rules, Agent Morgan. Your authority doesn't reach this far. How do you know my name?" "I know all my guests. Always have. Since 1957, I've welcomed travelers to the Starlight. Helped them rest. Helped them stay. You're not human. Neither is this place. Surely you figured that out by now." He took another step. I aimed at his chest. "I'm warning you. Fire if it makes you feel better. But you can't kill what was never alive." I squeezed the trigger. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. The bullet hit him center mass. Should have dropped him immediately. He didn't even flinch. The wound was there. I saw the impact. But no blood, no reaction. He just kept walking forward, smile never wavering. "I told you," he said. "Different rules." I ran. Back through the maintenance room into the corridor with the locked doors. Behind me, I heard him following. Not hurrying, just walking at that same measured pace. I hit the stairs, took them two at a time. Up, up, up. The distance seemed longer than before, more steps than I'd descended. But finally I burst through the door into the utility room, then out into the motel hallway. I ran to my room, slammed the door, locked it. Pushed the dresser in front as an extra barrier. Breathing hard, weapon still drawn, I waited. Footsteps in the hall. Slow, deliberate. They stopped outside my door. "Agent Morgan," the clerk's voice called. "You violated the guest agreement. There are consequences for that." "Go to hell." "I'm afraid that's where you already are. This motel exists between spaces, between the world you know and something else. People find us when they're lost, when they need rest, when they're vulnerable. And we take care of them forever. You're kidnapping people. We're offering sanctuary, a place where they can stay, where they never have to face the outside world again. Most of them eventually accept this, stop fighting, settle in. The rooms downstairs, that's where you keep them. That's where they keep themselves. The integration takes time, days, weeks, sometimes months. But eventually they understand. Eventually they become part of the Starlight. And if they don't? Silence, then. Then they join the walls. I looked at the walls of my room. Really looked. The generic paint job, the bland surface. But in the right light I could see patterns. Shapes pressed into the material beneath. Human shapes. You're insane. I'm patient, and I have all the time in the world. You'll stay in that room, Agent Morgan. Eventually, you'll get hungry. Eventually, you'll get thirsty. And when you open that door, I'll be here, waiting. The footsteps retreated. I was alone again, trapped in a motel room with walls made of people. I checked my phone, 2:17 a.m. Still no signal. My missed check-in with Sheriff Garrett would have happened an hour ago. He'd know something was wrong. But what could he do? Send deputies to a location that didn't exist on any map? I needed to think, needed to figure out how to escape. The windows. Could I break through them? I checked. The curtains were heavier than I'd initially noticed. When I pulled them aside, I saw why. The window wasn't glass. It was something else, some material that looked like glass but felt like concrete. I hit it with the butt of my gun. Nothing, not even a scratch. The door was the only exit, and the clerk was right. Eventually, I'd have to open it. Or I'd die in here and probably get absorbed into the walls like everyone else who'd resisted. Think, Morgan, you've been in bad situations before. Find the angle, find the way out. The maintenance room, the equipment I'd seen. What was it for? And why was it the only thing that had made the clerk react? He'd been calm about everything else, but finding me in that room had bothered him. Maybe that was the key. Maybe that equipment controlled something about the motel, kept it anchored or powered or whatever impossible thing made this place exist. If I could get back down there, if I could damage the equipment. But that meant getting past the clerk, and he'd proven bullets didn't work. I needed another approach. At 3 a.m. I heard sounds outside, car engines starting. I looked through the peephole. All 6 cars in the parking lot were pulling out, leaving together. Headlights sweeping across the building as they turned, then gone down the exit ramp toward the highway. The parking lot was empty except for my car. Then I heard voices, multiple voices, coming from the other rooms, all speaking in unison. Stay with us, stay with us, stay with us. It was the other guests, the people in the lit rooms. All of them chanting together, trying to convince me, or maybe trying to convince themselves. I opened my notebook, started writing. If I didn't make it, someone needed to know what I'd discovered. The motel, the clerk, the basement rooms, the maintenance equipment. Everything. At 4 a.m., my phone's battery died despite being fully charged when I arrived. At 4:30, my backup phone died too. The body camera and audio recorder continued working, but for how long? At 5 a.m., the voices stopped. The silence that followed was worse. And at 5:30, I heard scratching at my door. Not knocking. Scratching. Like something with claws trying to get in. I pointed my weapon at the door, knowing it was useless but holding it anyway. The scratching continued for 10 minutes, then stopped. Footsteps retreated. I waited until 6 a.m. No more sounds, no more disturbances. The motel had gone quiet. Now or never. Either I tried to escape now while whatever ran this place was quiet, or I waited until I was too weak to try. I moved the dresser away from the door, slowly, quietly. Checked the peephole. Empty hallway. I unlocked the door, opened it a crack. Nothing. No clerk, no guests, no movement. I stepped into the hallway, weapon drawn. Crept toward the utility room and the stairs to the basement. If I could reach the maintenance room, maybe I could find a way to disrupt whatever kept this place running. The utility room door was still unlocked. I entered, moved to the basement stairs. Started down. The descent felt longer this time, the stairs stretching impossibly. After what seemed like 100 steps, I reached the corridor. The locked doors, the lights underneath. The voices had stopped, but I could sense presence behind those doors. People. Or what used to be people. I moved past them to the maintenance room, pushed open the heavy door. The equipment was humming now, alive with power. Lights blinked on the panels, machines cycled through unknown processes, and standing beside the surgical chair, waiting for me, was the clerk. "I knew you'd come back," he said. "Get away from that equipment." "Or what? You'll shoot me again?" "We've established that doesn't work. Then I'll destroy the equipment. Whatever this is, whatever keeps the motel running, I'll tear it all down." "You could try. But this machinery is very old, very robust. It was built to last, built to keep functioning no matter what." "What is it?" "The heart of the starlight. The mechanism that allows this place to exist between spaces. It was created by people who understood that reality has layers, that certain locations can be folded in on themselves. This motel occupies a pocket dimension, connected to your world but separate from it. The equipment maintains that connection. Shut it down. I can't. It runs independently, has since 1957. All I can do is manage it, welcome guests, help them settle in. You're a prisoner here, too. For the first time, his smile faltered. Yes, I've been the manager for 64 years. Before that, someone else held this position. Before them, someone else. The Starlight requires a keeper, and whoever accepts that role becomes bound to it. Then help me shut it down, end this. I don't want to end it. This is my purpose, my existence. Without the Starlight, I'm nothing. You're nothing anyway. You're a puppet for whatever created this place. Perhaps, but a puppet that serves an important function. There are people who need the Starlight. People who can't cope with the outside world, who need sanctuary. We provide that. It's not evil, Agent Morgan. It's necessary. You're kidnapping people. We're offering an alternative. Some accept, some refuse and eventually leave. But those who truly need us, who can't survive out there, they stay, and we take care of them forever. I thought about the photographs on the wall. 64 years of guests. How many had stayed? How many had integrated into the motel, become part of its structure? The missing people, I said. Stephen Blake, the others. Where are they? Integrating. Room 101 through 104. They're learning to accept their new reality. In a few more days, they'll be ready. Ready for what? To take my place. I've been here long enough. I need rest. One of them will become the new manager, and I'll finally be able to integrate fully. Become part of the walls, part of the structure. Find peace. That's insane. That's the way it works. The Starlight needs a conscious keeper, someone to interact with guests. But after decades, the keeper needs rest. So we recruit a replacement from the guests who show potential. Intelligence, adaptability, willingness to serve. And the others, the ones who don't become keepers, they become part of the motel itself. Their consciousness merges with the structure, helps maintain the pocket dimension. They're not suffering, Agent Morgan. They're part of something larger than themselves. I wanted to shoot him again, wanted to destroy the equipment, burn this place down. But I knew neither would work. This was beyond physical solutions. There has to be a way to stop this, I said. Why would you want to? The Starlight has existed for decades. It serves a purpose. Removing it would only create suffering for those who need its sanctuary. It's a prison disguised as sanctuary. Isn't all sanctuary a kind of prison? Safe walls to keep the world out. The Starlight is just more honest about it. I looked at the equipment, trying to understand its function. Cables ran from the machines into the walls, into the floor, spreading throughout the structure. The surgical chair had restraints and some kind of helmet device. This was where the integration happened, where guests were transformed into components of the motel. What happens if I destroy myself? I asked. If I refuse to integrate, refuse to leave? Eventually, you'd die, and your consciousness would be absorbed involuntarily. More traumatic, less efficient, but the result is the same. So, either way, I'm trapped. Unless you leave. The door is still available. You can check out, return to your car, drive away. You've learned the truth, documented evidence. You can tell your superiors, try to convince them, though I doubt they'll believe you. You'd let me go? Why not? You haven't integrated. You're still a guest who can check out. The others have progressed too far, but you're still early in the process. And the missing people? They stay. They're already integrated into the lower rooms. Removing them now would be like ripping out your own organs. Possible, but fatal for everyone involved. I thought about Sheriff Garrett, about the families of the missing people, about my duty as an agent to find them, rescue them, bring them home. But if what the clerk said was true, there was no rescue possible. They were already lost, already transformed into something else. Show me, I said. Show me the people in the lower rooms. Let me see what you've done to them. That's not advisable. Show me, or I start shooting equipment until something breaks. He considered this, then nodded. Very well. But understand that what you see can't be unseen. He led me back to the corridor with the numbered doors, pulled out a keyring, unlocked room 101. Inside was Stephen Blake, or what had been Stephen Blake. He sat in a chair facing the wall, completely still. His skin had taken on a translucent quality, like I could see through him to the wall behind. His eyes were open but empty, reflecting nothing. And where his body met the chair, the boundary was blurred, like he was merging with the furniture, becoming part of it. He's integrating well, the clerk said. In a few more days, the process will be complete. He'll become fully part of the structure, and his consciousness will expand to encompass the entire motel. He'll be everywhere and nowhere, part of everything. He's dying. He's transcending, becoming something more than human, something eternal. I moved to room 102. Sarah Vega was further along, her form almost completely merged with the wall. Just her face was still visible, eyes closed, expression peaceful. Room 103 held Michael Torres. He was the one I'd heard repeating, "Everything's fine here." He was still saying it, voice barely a whisper now. His body was mostly gone, absorbed into the room's structure. Room 104 was Rebecca Hall. She'd only been here a few days, but the integration was progressing fast. Her outline was still visible but fading, like a photograph left in sunlight too long. "You're murdering them," I said. "I'm giving them purpose. They were lost souls, Agent Morgan, driving alone at night, uncertain about their futures. The starlight called to them because they needed it, and now they're part of something meaningful. You're rationalizing kidnapping and murder. I'm explaining a system that predates your understanding of reality. The starlight exists because it must, and it will continue existing long after you and I are gone." I looked at the 4 missing people, all in various stages of being absorbed into the motel. Could they be saved? Was there any way to reverse the process? "If I shut down the equipment," I said, "what happens to them?" "The pocket dimension collapses. The motel ceases to exist, and everyone integrated into its structure dies instantly. 64 years of accumulated consciousness, gone. How many people? 347 full integrations. Another 62 partial. Plus me. All erased if you destroy the machinery. 400 people total, all trapped in this impossible structure. Shutting it down would kill everyone, including the 4 I'd come to rescue." "You're holding hostages," I said. "I'm maintaining equilibrium. The starlight has a function. Disrupting it creates more harm than allowing it to continue." He was probably right. Destroying the motel would kill everyone inside. But leaving it intact meant condemning future victims to the same fate. "There has to be another way," I said. "There isn't. This is the reality. You can accept it or die fighting it, but you can't change it." I thought about my options. Walk away. Leave the 4 missing people to their fate. Or try to destroy the motel and kill everyone in the process, including potential victims. Neither was acceptable. "What if I take your place?" I asked. "Become the new keeper? Would you let the current victims go?" "It doesn't work that way. The keeper must be chosen from integrated guests. You're not integrated. Then integrate me. Do whatever you do to make people part of this place. Then I'll take over and release the current victims." He studied me for a long moment. "You'd sacrifice yourself?" "If it means 4 people go free and no one else gets trapped here, yes. Noble, but ultimately futile. Even as keeper, you can't release integrated guests. They're part of the structure now. Releasing them would be like cutting off your own limbs. Then what can I do? You can leave, or you can stay and join them. Those are your only options." The sun would be rising soon. My window to escape was closing. If I didn't leave now, I might never get another chance. But those 4 people... "Give me until sunrise," I said. "Let me think. Let me find another way." "There is no other way. But I'll give you the time. Return to your room. When the sun rises, make your decision." He escorted me back up the stairs, through the utility room, into the hallway. My room door stood open. I entered, and he closed it behind me. I sat on the bed, head in my hands. Everything I'd seen, everything I'd learned. It was impossible, but it was real, and I had less than an hour to figure out what to do. I sat in that motel room as the clock ticked toward dawn, trying to find a solution that didn't exist. My body camera was still recording, audio still capturing everything. Evidence that would prove the starlight was real, if anyone ever reviewed it. But evidence wasn't enough. 4 people were trapped here, being slowly absorbed into an impossible structure, and I was the only person who knew the truth. My phone was dead, both primary and backup. No way to contact Sheriff Garrett, no way to call for help. Even if I could, what would I tell him? Send a team to a motel that exists between dimensions. Bring weapons that won't work against something that was never alive. I thought about the maintenance equipment, the heart of the starlight, the mechanism keeping this pocket dimension stable. The clerk had said destroying it would kill everyone integrated into the structure. But was that true? Or was it another lie to keep me from interfering? There was only one way to find out. At 6:15 a.m., I made my decision. I opened my room door and stepped into the hallway. The clerk was there, waiting exactly where I'd expected. "Have you decided?" he asked. "I'm leaving," I said. "But first, I want to say goodbye to the guests, the 4 in the basement. Let me see them one more time." He considered this. Why? Because they deserve someone to witness what happened to them. Someone to remember them as people, not just components of a structure. Very well. But be quick. The sun rises soon, and when it does, the exit will close until nightfall. He led me down to the basement again. The stairs, the corridor, the locked doors. He opened each room, let me look inside at the disappearing people. Stephen Blake, barely visible now. Sarah Vega, almost completely merged with the wall. Michael Torres, still whispering his mantra. Rebecca Hall, fading like morning mist. "I'm sorry," I said to each of them, though I didn't know if they could hear. I tried. Then the clerk led me to the maintenance room. Showed me the equipment one final time, explaining how it worked. The power source, the dimensional anchors, the integration chairs. All of it powered by the accumulated consciousness of previous guests. A self-sustaining system that fed on human minds. While he talked, I memorized everything. The control panel layout, which machines connected to which cables, where the critical junctions were. "Fascinating, isn't it?" he said. "Technology beyond your world's current understanding. Built by people who knew there were spaces between spaces. Places that could be carved out and maintained." "Who built it?" I asked. "Who created the starlight?" "A cult in the 1950s. They believed they could create waypoints between reality and somewhere else. places where people could escape the coming atomic war, hide from nuclear annihilation. This motel was one of their experiments. It worked better than they expected. Where are they now? Integrated into the structure. The first guests. They've been part of the Starlight for 64 years, maintaining it from within. I looked at the equipment with new understanding. This was a trap built by paranoid cultists, powered by human consciousness, running automatically for decades. And the clerk was right. Destroying it would kill everyone inside. But leaving it intact meant more victims, more travelers stopping at a motel that shouldn't exist, getting absorbed into a dimensional pocket. "Thank you for showing me," I said. "I understand now." "Good, then let's get you checked out. Your car is waiting." He led me back upstairs. The sky outside the windows was lightening, dawn coming fast. We walked to the office where I'd checked in hours ago. He pulled out the ledger, found my entry, crossed it out with a red pen. "Checked out at 6:47 a.m. I hope you enjoyed your stay at the Starlight Motor Lodge." "It was unforgettable," I said honestly. "Will you report what you found?" "Yes." "And will they believe you?" "Probably not." "Good. The Starlight works best when people think it's just a story, an urban legend, something that might exist but probably doesn't." He handed me my car keys. "Drive safely, Agent Morgan, and if you ever find yourself on Route 285 at night, you're always welcome back." "I'll pass." I walked out of the office, across the parking lot to my car. The sun was touching the horizon now, first light spreading across the desert. The motel looked even more wrong in dawn's early glow, too sharp, too colorful, like a painting that didn't match the surrounding reality. I got in my car, started the engine. It turned over immediately, no hesitation. I put it in reverse, backed out of the space. Then I put it in drive and headed toward the exit ramp. In my rearview mirror, I saw the clerk standing in the office doorway, still smiling, still watching. I reached the highway and turned north, back toward Carrizozo. Behind me, the exit ramp to the Starlight Motor Lodge began to fade. By the time I'd driven 100 yards, it was completely gone. Just empty desert. No sign it had ever existed. I drove for 20 minutes before my phone suddenly regained signal. 11 missed calls from Sheriff Garrett, 6 voicemails, a dozen texts, all asking if I was okay, where I was, what had happened. I called him back. "Jesus Christ, Morgan," he answered immediately. "You missed 4 check-ins. I was about to send a search team." "I found the motel," I said. "I checked in. I survived." "And the missing people?" I was quiet for a long moment. "They're still there, integrated into the structure, can't be recovered." "What does that mean?" "It means they're dead, Sheriff. Not dead the way we usually mean it, but gone. Changed. They're part of the motel now. That doesn't make sense." "Nothing about this case makes sense. But I have evidence. Body camera footage, audio recordings, proof the Starlight exists." "Where is it?" "I'll send a team right now." "You can't. It only appears at night. And it's not in any fixed location. It moves, or reality moves around it. I don't understand the mechanism." "So, what do we do?" "I don't know yet. Let me get to your office. We'll review what I've got, figure out next steps." I reached Carrizozo around 8 a.m. Garrett was waiting at the diner with 2 deputies and a laptop set up to review my footage. We spent 2 hours going through everything the body camera had captured. The evidence was damning and impossible. Video of the motel, the clerk, the basement rooms, the integrated victims. Audio of our conversations. Proof that something impossible was operating on Route 285. "This is insane," one of the deputies said. watching Stephen Blake slowly merging with the wall. This can't be real. It's real, I said. I lived it. Garrett was quiet, thinking. If we go public with this, they'll call us crazy. Lock us up for psychiatric evaluation. I know. But we can't just ignore it. That thing is still out there. It'll take more people. I know that too. So, what's the play? I thought about the maintenance room, the equipment, the power source, the dimensional anchors. I think I can stop it, I said. But I need help. What kind of help? The illegal kind. Garrett studied me for a moment. Explain. The motel runs on equipment in the basement, machinery that maintains the pocket dimension. If we destroy that equipment, the whole structure collapses. But you said that would kill everyone integrated into it. I did. 400 people total, but most of them have been there for decades. They're not alive in any meaningful sense anymore. And if we don't destroy the motel, it'll keep taking victims, keep adding to that number. That's murder, the deputy said. You're talking about deliberately killing 400 people. I'm talking about ending something that should never have existed. Something that's been kidnapping people for 64 years. Garrett rubbed his face, exhausted. You want to blow it up. Essentially, yes. Get explosives, wait until night when the exit appears, drive in, plant charges in the maintenance room, get out, and detonate. The whole structure collapses, the pocket dimension closes, the starlight ceases to exist. And we live with killing 400 people. Or we do nothing and it continues forever. Taking people, absorbing them, growing. Nobody spoke for a long time. The waitress refilled our coffee, giving us concerned looks. She knew something was wrong, could feel the tension. I need to think about this, Garrett said finally. What you're proposing, it's beyond anything I've dealt with. I understand, but we need to decide fast. Every night that thing exists, someone else might find it. Might check in and never check out. Give me 24 hours. Let me review everything, consider the options. Then we'll make a call. I agreed, though I already knew what had to be done. With or without official support, I was going back to the starlight. I was going to end it. But first, I needed to rest. I'd been awake for over 30 hours, surviving an impossible situation. I was running on adrenaline and desperation. Garrett got me a room at a motel in Carrizozo, a normal, mundane motel with no dimensional pockets or integration rooms. I collapsed on the bed and slept for 6 hours, dreamless and deep. When I woke, it was afternoon. My phone had 17 new messages. Most were from Garrett, but 3 were from an unknown number. The texts said, "You made the right choice leaving, but you can't destroy us. The starlight is eternal." I blocked the number and called Garrett back. "I've been thinking," he said, "and I've been making calls. Reached out to some people I know in federal agencies, ones who deal with unusual situations. They're interested in your evidence." "What did you tell them?" "Everything. Sent them the footage. They want to meet with you." "When?" "Tonight, in Albuquerque. There's a team that specializes in this kind of thing. Dimensional anomalies, reality breaks, impossible structures. Apparently the starlight isn't the first case like this." That surprised me. "There are others?" "According to my contact, yes. Not many, but enough that they have protocols. Enough that they take this seriously." "What's the protocol for something like the starlight?" "They wouldn't say over the phone. But they want to hear your story directly, want to examine your evidence, and they want to discuss options for containment." "Not destruction?" "They said destruction is complicated when dealing with dimensional structures. Could cause unintended consequences. They prefer containment and monitoring." "That means leaving it operational." "For now, yes. But preventing access, warning off potential victims, maybe finding a way to extract the integrated consciousness eventually. It wasn't what I wanted to hear, but it was better than doing nothing. "Set up the meeting," I said. "I'll be there." We arranged to meet at a federal building in Albuquerque at 8 p.m. I had 4 hours to drive there, review my evidence one more time, and prepare to explain the impossible to people who supposedly believed in impossible things. The drive gave me time to think about everything I'd seen and learned. The Starlight Motor Lodge, existing in a pocket between realities. The clerk, bound to serve it for 64 years. The integrated victims, absorbed into the structure. The maintenance equipment keeping it all running. And the cultists who'd built it, trying to escape nuclear annihilation by creating sanctuaries outside normal reality. They'd succeeded too well, created something that lasted long past their original intention. I thought about the 4 missing people I'd seen. Stephen Blake, Sarah Vega, Michael Torres, Rebecca Hall. They were still in there, still slowly merging with the walls. Could they be saved, or were they already too far gone? The federal team would have answers. They had to. They couldn't let something like the Starlight operate indefinitely, collecting victims. Could they? I reached Albuquerque as the sun was setting. The federal building was downtown, nondescript office structure that could house any government agency. I parked, gathered my equipment, and went inside. Garrett was waiting in the lobby with 2 people I didn't recognize. A woman in her 50s, Asian, professional suit and tired eyes. And a man maybe my age, black, casual clothes but military bearing. "Agent Morgan," the woman said, extending her hand. "I'm Dr. Helen Park, Department of Unusual Phenomena. This is Marcus Reed, my field specialist." Unusual Phenomena? Branch of DHS most people don't know exists. We handle situations that fall outside the normal investigation protocols. The Starlight Motor Lodge qualifies. You believe me then. We've reviewed your footage. It's compelling. But we need to hear the full story from you. Everything you experienced, everything you learned. They led me to a conference room equipped with recording equipment. For the next 3 hours, I recounted everything. The drive down 285, seeing the signs, taking the exit, checking into room 14. The clerk, the basement rooms, the maintenance equipment, the integrated victims, all of it. Dr. Park asked detailed questions, taking notes. Reed mostly listened, occasionally clarifying tactical details about the motel's layout. They were professional, focused, and most importantly, they believed me. When I finished, Dr. Park sat back. "You were lucky to get out. The Starlight doesn't usually release guests once they've discovered the basement level." The clerk said I hadn't integrated yet, that I could still check out. Technically true, but most people in your situation panic, try to fight, end up triggering defensive responses. You stayed calm, played by the rules. That's why you survived. What are defensive responses? The motel can alter its internal structure, extend corridors, create loops, trap people in recursive spaces. Time moves differently inside than out. People have been trapped for what felt like days when only hours passed externally. You know a lot about this place. We've been monitoring it for 3 years. Ever since a highway patrol officer reported seeing it and filed a detailed incident report. We've had operatives try to investigate twice. Both times they barely made it out. So you know it's dangerous. We know it's complex. The Starlight is what we call a pocket realm, a self-contained dimension connected to ours through access points that shift. The motel is the interface, the visible part, but the actual pocket exists outside normal space-time. Can it be destroyed? Dr. Park and Reed exchanged glances. "That's complicated," she said. "How complicated?" Destroying a pocket realm can have cascade effects. Reality in the surrounding area can become unstable. We could inadvertently create something worse than the original problem. So you're going to leave it operational. We're going to contain it. Establish a monitoring network. Identify when and where the access points appear. Prevent civilians from entering. We have technology that can detect dimensional shifts. We can deploy it along Route 285. That's not enough. The Starlight is actively hunting people, drawing them in. We're aware, but until we fully understand the mechanism, destroying it is too risky. I thought about the 400 people trapped inside. About Stephen Blake slowly merging with the walls. About future victims who'd find the exit ramp and check in, never knowing they'd never leave. What about extraction? I asked. Can the integrated victims be saved? We don't know. We're working on theory, trying to understand how consciousness integrates with dimensional structures. If we solve that, maybe we can reverse the process. How long will that take? Years, maybe decades. That's not good enough. It's what we have. Unless you want to risk destroying the pocket and possibly destabilizing reality for miles around. I looked at Sheriff Garrett. He looked tired, defeated. We'd both seen things we couldn't unsee, learned truths we couldn't unlearn. I need to think, I said. Take your time. But understand, you can't act unilaterally. The Starlight falls under federal jurisdiction now. Any attempt to destroy it would be considered domestic terrorism. You're threatening me? I'm informing you of the legal reality. We appreciate what you've discovered. Your footage and testimony are invaluable. But from this point forward, the department handles containment, while people keep disappearing. We'll minimize that risk. But yes, there will likely be more victims before we solve this. That's the unfortunate truth. The meeting ended shortly after. They copied all my footage, took my statement, and thanked me for my cooperation. Then they escorted me out of the building with the clear message that my involvement was finished. Garrett drove me back to my car. We sat in the parking lot, not speaking for a long time. They're not going to stop it, he said, finally. No. So what do we do? I thought about my options. Walk away, let the federal team handle it their way. Or take matters into my own hands, consequences be damned. We stop it ourselves, I said. How? We go back tonight, plant explosives in the maintenance room, destroy the pocket from the inside. That's insane. They'll arrest us. Maybe. But the Starlight will be gone. No more victims. And 400 people die. 400 people who are already gone. We'd be ending their suffering, not killing them. Garrett was quiet, wrestling with the decision. Then I'll help, but we do it smart. Plan it properly. Get the right equipment. We have 12 hours until the exit appears. Can you get explosives in that time? I know, people. It'll cost, and we'll probably end up in federal prison. But yeah, I can get what we need. We spent the next few hours planning. Garrett made calls to contacts who could supply military-grade explosives, no questions asked. I calculated the amount needed to collapse the maintenance room and trigger a cascade failure in the dimensional anchors. By 10 p.m. we had everything. Enough C4 to level a small building, detonators, timers, protective gear, all loaded in Garrett's truck, ready to go. Last chance to back out, he said as we drove south on Route 285. Once we do this, there's no going back. I know. You understand, we're probably committing murder. The federal team said those integrated people might be saved eventually. They said years. Decades. How many more victims while we wait? 10, 20, 50? You're right. I just need to hear you say this is the only way. It's the only way. We drove in silence after that, watching for the signs. Around midnight, they appeared. Starlight Motor Lodge, next exit. And the exit ramp materialized ahead of us exactly as it had before. Garrett took it without hesitation. We crested the rise, and there it was. The motel, lit up and welcoming. A few cars in the parking lot, lights on in several rooms. Business as usual. We parked, unloaded the equipment. Garrett had dressed in overalls, disguising the explosives as maintenance equipment. I wore civilian clothes, trying to look like a normal guest. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready." We walked to the office. The clerk looked up as we entered. Same guy, same smile. He recognized me immediately. "Agent Morgan, you've returned. Does this mean you've reconsidered?" "Actually, yes. I want to learn more about how this place works. The maintenance equipment fascinated me." His smile widened. "Of course. I'd be happy to show you. And your friend. He's helping me. We're very interested in the dimensional mechanics." "How wonderful. Follow me." He led us through the utility room, down the stairs. Garrett's eyes widened as we descended. The impossible depth, the wrongness of the architecture. But he kept moving, carrying the disguised explosives. We reached the basement corridor. The clerk opened the maintenance room door. "Everything is exactly as you saw before. Please, examine whatever you like." Garrett and I entered. The equipment hummed and blinked, keeping the pocket dimension stable. The surgical chairs, the cables, the control panels, all of it ready to be destroyed. The clerk stood in the doorway, watching. "You're planning to destroy this, aren't you?" "Yes," I said, not bothering to lie. "I thought you might, that's why I let you return. I wanted you to understand what you're about to do. I understand perfectly. I'm ending something evil. You're ending sanctuary for people who need it. But more than that, you're ending 400 integrated consciousness. 400 people who still exist in a distributed form. They're not people anymore. They're prisoners. They're transformed, evolved, part of something greater. And you're going to extinguish them because you can't accept what they've become. I'm going to free them. You're going to kill them. But I won't stop you. I've been hoping for this for years. I'm ready to integrate fully, ready to rest." That stopped me. "You want this? I've been the keeper for 64 years. I'm exhausted. If you destroy the motel, I'll finally be released. We all will." "The integrated victims want to die?" "They want peace. Most of them have been conscious for decades, trapped in the walls, unable to sleep or rest or end. You'd be doing them a mercy." Garrett and I looked at each other. This changed things. If the victims wanted to be released, "Do it quickly," the clerk said. "The federal team will be here soon. They've been monitoring dimensional shifts. They know you're here." "How long do we have?" 20 minutes, maybe less. We worked fast. Garrett planted C4 at critical junctions in the equipment, wired them to a remote detonator. I set backup charges on the dimensional anchors, redundancy in case something failed. The clerk watched calmly. "Thank you," he said. "Truly, you're giving us what we've wanted for years." "I'm sorry it came to this," I said. "Don't be. This is how it was always meant to end. The Starlight was built by people who feared death. But death is natural, necessary. We've been denying it for 64 years. Time to accept it." We finished planting the explosives. 15 pounds total, enough to completely destroy the maintenance room and collapse the pocket dimension. "We need to go," Garrett said, checking his watch. "Federal team will be here in 10 minutes." We headed for the stairs. The clerk remained behind, standing among the equipment he'd maintained for decades. "Wait," I said, turning back. "What's your real name? Before you became the keeper?" He smiled, genuine this time. David Morrison. I checked in as a guest in 1957, stayed because I thought I'd found paradise. Realized too late it was prison. I'm sorry, David. Don't be. Just finish this, please. We ran up the stairs, through the utility room into the motel hallway. The lights were flickering now, the structure sensing what was coming. We burst out into the parking lot. Sirens in the distance. The federal team incoming fast. Drive, I shouted. Garrett floored it. The truck fishtailing as we sped toward the exit ramp. Behind us, black SUVs were pulling into the parking lot, agents deploying. We reached the highway, turned north. I pulled out the remote detonator. Do it, Garrett said. I pressed the button. For a moment, nothing. Then a flash of light in my rearview mirror. Not an explosion, exactly. More like reality folding in on itself. The motel collapsed inward. Dimensional anchors failing. Pocket realm closing. And in that moment, I felt 400 voices cry out. Not in pain or fear. In relief. In gratitude. In freedom. Then silence. The exit ramp was gone. The motel was gone. The entire structure had ceased to exist, erased from reality as thoroughly as if it never had been. It's done, I said quietly. Garrett drove us back to Carrizozo in silence. We both knew what came next. Federal agents would be looking for us. We'd face charges. Terrorism, murder, destruction of federal property. But the starlight was gone. No more victims. We reached the diner around 2 a.m. Rosie's was closed, but the lights were on inside. Dr. Park and Reed were waiting in a booth. That was reckless, Park said as we entered. Dangerous, potentially catastrophic. But effective, I replied. The starlight is gone. Along with 400 integrated consciousness. That's mass murder, Agent Morgan. That's mercy. They wanted to die, the Keeper told us. He thanked us for freeing them. Convenient. And unprovable now that they're all gone. Are you going to arrest us? Park considered this. Technically, yes. You destroyed federal evidence, violated orders, caused an uncontrolled dimensional collapse, but our scans show the collapse was clean. No cascade effects, no reality instability. The pocket closed perfectly, like it was designed to be destroyed. Almost like someone built in a failsafe. Maybe they did, I said. Maybe the cultists who created it knew someday it would need to end. Maybe. Regardless, the starlight is gone. The threat is eliminated. And while your methods were illegal, the results are acceptable. So, no charges? I didn't say that. You'll both face consequences. But perhaps not federal prison. Perhaps just suspension, fines, permanent records. The kind of punishment that ruins careers without ending lives. I can live with that, Garrett said. Me too, I agreed. Park stood. Get some rest. Report to the Albuquerque office tomorrow at 10 a.m. We'll process everything then. She and Reed left. Garrett and I sat in the booth, exhausted. Was it worth it? He asked. I thought about the 4 missing people who'd never come home. About the 400 voices crying out in relief as they finally found peace. About the countless future victims who'd never disappear into an impossible motel. Yeah, I said, it was worth it. I lost my FBI credentials 3 weeks later. Technically, voluntary resignation, but we all knew it was forced. The official story was burnout following the Albuquerque incident. Need for extended psychiatric evaluation. Nobody mentioned the Starlight Motor Lodge. Garrett kept his sheriff position but with sanctions. No federal cooperation for 5 years. No access to certain databases. A small price to pay, he said, for ending something evil. The 4 families of the missing people were told their loved ones died in an accident, bodies unrecoverable. Stephen Blake's family held a memorial service. Sarah Vega's sons planted a tree in her honor. Michael Torres's wife remarried eventually. Rebecca Hall's parents never really recovered. I attended all 4 memorials, sitting in the back, saying nothing. They deserved better than lies, but the truth was impossible to explain. Dr. Park's team spent months studying the site where the starlight had existed. They found nothing. No residual dimensional energy, no structural remains, no evidence anything had ever been there. Just empty desert, exactly like it should be. But Route 285 changed after that. Fewer mysterious disappearances, fewer reports of strange motels appearing at night. Whatever the starlight had been, destroying it had ended the phenomenon. I moved to Colorado, took a job as a private investigator. Mostly routine work. Insurance fraud, missing persons, background checks. Nothing involving impossible structures or dimensional pockets. And that suited me fine. But 3 months after the starlight's destruction, I got a call. Unknown number, middle of the night. Agent Morgan? A man's voice, familiar, but I couldn't place it. Who is this? You freed us, thank you. David? What's left of him? The integration preserved consciousness even after death. We're scattered now, diffuse, fading. But before we go completely, we wanted you to know you did the right thing. Are you in pain? No. We're dissolving peacefully, returning to whatever comes next. The 400 of us together, finally free, finally able to rest. I'm sorry it took so long. Don't be. 64 years in prison, but infinity in freedom. The math works out. What about the 4 recent victims? Stephen, Sarah, Michael, Rebecca. They're with us. Less integrated, easier to dissolve. They send their gratitude to their families, and forgiveness to you for what you had to do. Tell them I'm sorry. They know, everyone knows. You're a hero, Agent Morgan. You freed 400 prisoners. Don't let anyone tell you different. The line went dead. I never received another call from that number, and when I tried to call back, it didn't exist. But I like to think David was telling the truth, that the 400 integrated consciousness found peace, that Stephen Blake and the others were finally free. I wrote up a full report of everything, the investigation, the motel, the destruction, sealed it in an envelope addressed to the FBI's X-Files equivalent, whatever official branch handles impossible cases. Maybe someday it'll be declassified. Maybe someone will read it and understand what happened on Route 285 in September 2021. Or maybe it'll stay buried, another impossible story that officially never happened. Sheriff Garrett still calls me occasionally. We don't talk about the starlight directly. Assume our phones are monitored, but he mentions that Route 285 is quiet now. The travelers report normal journeys, no missing motels, no dimensional shifts. He's retiring next year, says he's done enough, seen enough, wants to spend his remaining time fishing and forgetting. I don't blame him. As for me, I keep working, keep investigating, keep looking for truth in a world that prefers comfortable lies. The Albuquerque incident taught me impossible things exist. The starlight taught me they can be stopped. But sometimes, late at night, I dream about that motel, about walking its corridors, hearing whispers from the walls, seeing the clerk's empty eyes. And I wake up wondering if I really destroyed it, or just closed one access point while others remain. Dr. Park said pocket realms are complex, that they can have multiple interfaces, multiple connection points to normal reality. What if the Starlight Motor Lodge was just one entrance? What if there are others? I've spent months researching, finding reports of similar phenomena, motels that appear and disappear, hotels with rooms that shouldn't exist, rest stops where time moves wrong. They're rare, but they're out there. Scattered across the country, maybe the world. Each one a pocket realm. Each one collecting victims. Each one waiting to be found. And maybe that's my new job. Not federal agent anymore, but something else. Someone who knows the truth, who's seen the impossible, who's willing to do what needs to be done. There's a place in Nevada I'm investigating. A diner that exists in 3 locations simultaneously. Witnesses say they ate breakfast, drove 50 miles, and found the same diner with the same staff serving the same meal. Like reality is looping, creating duplicates. 3 people have disappeared after visiting that diner. Their cars were found, but they weren't. Sounds familiar. I'm driving there next week. Gonna eat at that diner, see what I can learn. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's something worse than the Starlight. Either way, I'll find out. Because someone has to. Someone needs to investigate the places that shouldn't exist. The phenomena that official channels ignore. Someone needs to protect people from impossible threats. That someone used to be FBI agent Caroline Morgan. Now it's just Caroline Morgan. Private investigator with extremely unusual specialties. The pay is worse. The risks are higher. The support is non-existent. But I'm good at it. And after the Starlight, I know I can handle whatever else is out there. As long as I remember the lesson, when you find something impossible, something that breaks reality's rules, sometimes the only solution is to break it back. Destroy it completely. Give no quarter to things that shouldn't exist. The federal team wanted to study the Starlight, contain it, learn from it. And while they were studying, people kept disappearing, kept getting absorbed into walls, kept crying out for mercy that never came. We gave them that mercy. Freed 400 prisoners in one catastrophic moment. Was it the right choice? I think so. David Morrison thought so. The integrated victims thought so. But I carry those 400 deaths anyway. Not as guilt. They wanted to die. But as responsibility. I ended their suffering, but I also ended them. That's a weight I'll carry forever. And maybe that's appropriate. Maybe that's the cost of doing what needs to be done. You save who you can, end what must be ended, and live with the consequences. The Starlight Motor Lodge is gone, destroyed, dissolved, erased from reality. But somewhere in the desert night, other impossible things wait. Other pockets exist. Other structures trap unwary travelers. And I'm coming for them too. One motel at a time. One diner. One rest stop. One impossible place after another. Until I've freed every prisoner, destroyed every pocket, ended every trap. Or until something finally traps me. Either way, the work continues. The Starlight was just the beginning.